voters think. We are going to be watching those election results in real time. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But as always, Richard, we appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox. We do have to step away for a 2-minute break.
Delight seeing you. I hope everyone goes to vote.
Absolutely. And we are going to step away for that 2-minute break. I'm Stephanie Quinu. We'll be right back.
All right. I voted for Tony Hawk. Oh, bro, like, yeah, from the game? Yeah. Hell yeah. Off script, Richard? Yeah, sure. You didn't praise Lord Trump? Sorry, you're out? Ooh, true. Richard fell off of the closing statement? Yeah, I'm just, obviously, like, he's not a fan of Trump, right? It seems kind of obvious. Trump tweeted on True Social, there's cheating. Wait, there's already cheating? A lot of... Uh-oh. Ooh. Already? Damn, bro. This shit's all... Oh, man. Oh, fuck, bro. Are you kidding me? Oh, this is bad, bro. They're cheating. It's not... Bro, it's not even the evening yet. They're already trying to cheat.
Already trying to cheat.
That's bad, boys. That's real bad. He was never going to win Philadelphia. Well, I don't know. And, yeah, thoughts on a bomb threat in Washington? I think bomb threats are bad. Yeah, I think bomb threats are bad, and the people that do them should get in trouble. Yeah, that's my take on bomb threats. Yeah. L for bomb threats. Not so good, right?
There we go.
I mean, a 10-year-old kid's going to be a president? Maybe, right? I mean, there's a good chance. I mean, like, most people right now...
Oh, man.
He's ramping. 62%. Oh, my God. Yep, there you go. Oh, boy. He's getting up there. Refresh Twitter. Okay. All right, let me refresh Twitter real quick. I'll take a look at it. Trump. Not yet.
Closer to election night. So I want to share this look with you. And
Damn, why does she...
one of the polling sites that is happening right now. This is live right here. This is some live coverage as we're taking a look right here. You're taking a live look from El Segundo, California, as folks are still casting their ballots. But now that we are close to those polls closing, I did want to just share with you when polls actually close on election day. And on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see, of course, all eyes are on those battleground states, those 7 swing states. We're talking about Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. Now, for the state of Georgia, polls are going to be closing at 7 p.m. Eastern time. For North Carolina, those polls are closing at 7:30, so half an hour later. And in Pennsylvania, those polls are going to be closing at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So we were talking with political analyst Richard Gordon, saying that he expects those first results to come from Kentucky and Indiana. That is because those polls close at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So those are the states that we are going to likely hear from first. Florida and Georgia, South Carolina, Virginia, Vermont, those are going to be at 7 p.m. along with some of these others, right? And then 7:30, of course, North Carolina. 8 p.m., there is a massive number of states that are... those polls are going to be closing, but I'm going to focus in on some of those key swing states. Michigan, those Eastern time counties, that is going to be happening, and Pennsylvania. So those are the swing states at 8 p.m. At 9 p.m. Eastern time, the swing states of Arizona, the central time counties of Michigan and Wisconsin, those are when the polls are going to be closing there. 10 p.m., Nevada. That is when the polls are going to be closing in the swing state of Nevada. 11 p.m., no swing states there. We're talking mostly, Western California, Washington, Oregon. Midnight, Alaska and Hawaii. So
nobody
I did want to go over those with you right now. And also,
what are we
it's
talking
interesting
about?
to note because these states have different rules and regulations as to when they can actually start counting their votes. So states that do not allow counting to begin until polls close, 14 states plus Washington, D.C. There are states that allow counting to begin today on Election Day, but can also do so before polls close. Those are 24 states. And then there are states that allow processing and counting to begin before Election Day. Those are 12 states. So if you're curious, Pennsylvania, we keep talking about Pennsylvania, the critical swing state of Pennsylvania. That state allows counting to begin on Election Day and can do so before polls close. So I did want to just recap that with you. What we're going to continue to do is we do have access to our Fox O&Os, and I did want to head to the swing state of Atlanta, as all eyes are also on Georgia. They have their Fox 5 Atlanta coverage right now. We're going to pivot to that and listen in.
She tried probably saying Georgia, but yeah.
15 minutes after the polls opened, so around 8:15, police immediately moved in, checked things
The
out.
state of Atlanta, she just fucked up. It's not really that big of a deal.
Turns out we talked to one woman who watched it all unfold.
Yep.
State Representative Lydia Glaze says she drove right into Union City Police evacuating C.H. Gallant Elementary School after the bomb threat was discovered Tuesday. The state lawmaker says she was trying to drop off voters to cast their ballots. Election officials say it was a similar scene at the Itris Community Center on Lakeside Drive. Both locations were temporarily closed, evacuated, and a security sweep done.
This is shenanigans. The fact that we had two major voting precincts in one city with bomb threats is, for me, strongly concerning. I see it as a way to oppress the vote in this area. People were waiting in line.
100%.
People were inside ready to vote.
Yep.
And a lot of people concerned, Fulton County election officials tell us they were working on court orders to try to expand the hours at those two polling precincts.
Well, is their audio bad? I don't know.
Whether they have been able to do that.
That's a good question.
Reporting live in Fairburn, Angelique Proctor.
All right, Angelique, we'll keep watching it. Thanks for that live report. Meantime, after history-making presidential campaigns, former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are waiting anxiously along with millions of Americans.
And that is to find out who will be the next president of the United States.
I'm back, guys.
Fox's
Sorry about
Rebecca
that.
Castor reports from Florida, where former President Trump is watching the results roll in tonight.
Oh,
Rebecca?
there he is.
Courtney, Tom, we are at the Palm Beach County Convention Center where the Trump campaign is hosting its election night watch party. But the former president will be watching the returns come in from his home at Mar-a-Lago with a small group of...
I'm going to try and refresh this shit because this audio is fucked up. Like, I don't know what's going on with the audio. It's annoying.
Optimistic that voters will put him back in the White House. But it will all come down to voter turnout today.
The country that I'm living in is not the country I was born into.
Maybe,
no
I don't know. I'm trying to
America first is Donald Trump.
I voted for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So it's time for a change, moving forward in a better and uplifting way.
It's likely to be a long night as results slowly trickle in, and there's a possibility that a winner will not be declared before the night is over, something Trump calls an outrage.
It should never happen. A thing like that should never happen. This election should be over.
With 19 electoral votes, all eyes will be on Pennsylvania tonight. It's the state both candidates spent the most time and money in and see as a must-win.
The reality is whoever wins Pennsylvania is likely to be president.
Vice President Harris keeping a low profile today, speaking with several radio stations in a last-minute effort to get out the vote. She says Americans are ready for a fresh start.
Frankly, I think people are exhausted with this spirit and this approach that's been about trying to divide people and have them turn and point fingers at each other. I think people are done with that.
When asked if he would accept the results of the election if he lost, former President Trump said if it's a, quote, fair election, he'll be the first to acknowledge it.
If
Tom,
it's fair.
Courtney, back to you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so if
many
he
of us
wins.
just anxiously awaiting some results that we will be starting to get soon. Rebecca, thanks. On the other side of the aisle, Vice President Harris and her supporters spent the day working to get out the vote.
In just a few hours, Harris supporters will gather at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Atlanta to watch the election returns. Fox 5's Deidre Dukes is there tonight with the Harris campaign.
After months of heavy campaigning, numerous visits by VP Harris and her surrogates, final preparations are underway for tonight's watch party here at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Atlanta.
I'm gonna see how I fix this with this fucking audio, man.
Already have, you know, the examples.
Okay. Yeah, this shit's fucking annoying.
Like Governor Kemp in Georgia, who spoke out as a Republican, saying
wow,
there
Trump's
was no
65%.
So people are prepared, and
Damn.
I think hopefully this election will go smoothly.
And this is on CNN.
So let me get Professor Kuznick in.
Yeah, damn.
The contrast in both the candidates and their closing messages. Kamala Harris seems to have gone back to her original theme, which is of joy and hope and optimism. This whole joyful warrior thing, we saw evidence of that in the last few days and last few of her rallies. In fact, I don't think she even mentioned Donald Trump by name, even though it was very obvious the choice as she laid it out before the American people. Trump, on the other hand, has been a bit negative. After all, I mean, he is running against the incumbent, and he's painted this picture of everything going bad and everything going to the dogs in America, and he's the guy to fix it. The question is, which of these two messages is resonant? And in that, I also want to ask, you know, Trump doesn't seem to be making...
The garlic chicken strips. With give me some extra ranches if you don't mind. All right, love you. Bye.
Message, I think, is resonating. And she also talks about solutions to climate change. She talks about women's health issues, reproductive rights. She talks about a much more inclusive message about immigrants. So I guess we have a real choice. Some of Trump's former top supporters and generals, Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Kelly, Kelly, who was Trump's personal chief of staff. Milley, for example, says, now I realize he's a total fascist. He's the most dangerous person to this country. And Kelly said similar things, as have Esper and other top officials in the Trump administration. So that message is also getting out there that this is not a normal election. That Harris, for all her faults, and I'm very critical of her, especially her foreign policy, is going to abide by the Constitution, is going to maintain American democracy, and will concede if she's defeated. But as we were saying before, Trump was not going to concede. In fact, it's very likely Trump will claim victory tonight, even though there is no basis for doing so. and he is not going to abide by the Constitution. And as Professor Painter was saying,
he should claim victory right now.
Do what he did in 2020, in January 6th,
yeah, bro,
and try to overturn the results
immediately,
of the election.
bro, like right
so
now.
His choice is clear as can be.
Come out, do his victory speech in like an hour.
Mostly in the consensus about this.
So I already want Ambassador Romo back because you know we've been here for the last 3 days now, and you speak to people, they are willing to say that they think Trump will win. They are willing to say that they have voted for Trump in a way that I didn't see in 2020 or in 2016 because of two reasons. One, they feel like
COVID.
You know, these two wars that are going on, it takes a strong man to stop them, and they think that Trump is the one to do it, not a
Harris woman
or Biden. And the other one is the economy. People feel, even though the top line numbers look great, the stock markets are going through the roof and stuff.
Yep.
People feel like inflation's really biting them, and the only person who can fix that, whether he can or not, we don't know. But they feel that because he's a businessman, he can somehow fix the inflation and cost of living
That's
crisis.
true.
How do you speak to that?
Accurate.
Speak to specifically those two concerns, ending the wars and fixing the economy.
Well, both good questions, and I did get a lot of those types of questions up in Pennsylvania in the rural communities and up in Pittsburgh in the city itself. I don't think most Americans are focused on foreign policy right now. For better or worse, most of the concern and most of the questions are about the economy and inflation.
That's probably true.
Costs.
Yeah.
Are about reproductive rights and freedom and protecting our democracy.
Yeah.
They're about immigration and border control.
Yeah.
Very few people are asking those important questions that I wish more Americans would spend time thinking about.
What?
Is how will these two candidates approach Ukraine and the war in Ukraine from very different perspectives? I think Harris's approach would be more along the Biden approach, to continue to have partnerships with NATO, to continue to be proactive in trying to strategically arm Ukraine to protect its sovereignty and its freedom, the courageous fighting that the people are doing, and to continue to encourage people like Prime Minister Modi, when he meets with Mr. Zelensky, to be a peacemaker, to be somebody who can be in the middle and encourage both the Russians and the Ukrainians to peace. So the foreign policy issues are just not at the tip of people's tongues, nor as important. And
that's probably true. He's right.
Case with the bilateral relations between the U.S. and India. I think Mr. Trump would probably reinforce more tariffs and possible, increasing those significantly on India. He tends to look at a country with the basic trade deficit
let the dogs out.
Strategic relations and the importance that India brings in balancing China,
our
economic growth, and our democratic
I think Americans care about America.
Values.
I don't think they give a shit about Israel or Ukraine.
Vice President Harris is
not
probably
as much as they care about here.
Going to be a better friend in the U.S.-India relationship than Mr. Trump would. We do have bipartisan support for the U.S.-India relationship in Congress. Both Democrats and Republicans support that strong relationship.
All right, we'll see how this plays out. I want to thank all our guests, and I'm sure they'll be with us through the night and through the next few days. The important things to watch out for tonight, like I said, 6 p.m., most of the East Coast states shut, but they're not as relevant as the battleground states. 7 p.m. is when the first big battleground.
Why do you think Trump would win this, considering how almost every candidate and some rich person openly supports Kamala?
Eastern, which would be 6:30 a.m. tomorrow morning in India.
I'm gonna go and move over to this one. The reason why is I don't think that anybody really cares about celebrity endorsements. I think it makes a difference, but it doesn't make a big enough difference to matter. Because a lot of people, this is the way I think a lot of people see celebrities. It's like, oh, celebrity. Oh, you mean the people from the Diddy party? Oh. Obviously, it does matter and it does move the needle, but it's probably not as big as people might imagine. But of course, it does make a difference. And I also don't think that millennials care. I actually think that young people care less about celebrity culture than people did whenever I was like growing up. I was in like middle school and high school. I think celebrity culture is like kind of dying out compared to how it was. I'm not saying that like there are no more celebrities. I never said that. But I'm saying like it's not as it's not as universal as it used to be. So that's the way I see it. Wrong? They're called influencers now? Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely been more democratized, for sure. They care less about TV and movie celebrities and more about me. True, brother. What's he talking about?
Again, back to... Nope, we already covered that.
We got less than 2 hours until we start getting the results.
A little bit of what we understand, a couple of reports of some misinformation going on.
Misinformation.
Particularly in Coconino County as to student voters. Unless you are registered to vote 29 days ahead of this election, you are not eligible to vote, not even for president in Arizona. We do not have same-day voter registration. Some students, as I understand, are being informed otherwise, and they're being told that they can vote for president without being registered in Arizona.
Turn on that
this
shredder.
Is not true. And so if there are folks up there in the Flagstaff area, please understand that we're doing what we can to share on social media and in other ways to discourage this practice. But no voter can be turned away. And even if you vote with a provisional ballot, that's perfectly legal under the law. That doesn't mean it will necessarily count, and frankly, usually they do. But if you are not registered to vote within 29 days of the election, you are not eligible to vote.
Why do you need to register?
Even if you are registered outside of Arizona. You've got to be an Arizona voter.
I think it's so people don't vote in 2 different places.
In Arizona. This is an unidentified group that has been telling this to voters, saying they can use a Fed-only ballot or just vote for president. Neither one of these things is true. And voters across the state can verify their voter registration status at my.arizona.vote. I'll repeat that website, my.arizona.vote. At this time, that's the update. We're doing it in this format because we've got a lot going on, and we wouldn't have had time for questions anyway, although I've been given a high sign that we may have a question or two that have popped up on YouTube, which is the only channel through which, for this briefing, we're going to be taking questions.
They're using this excuse so they can cover their ass when they purge the votes.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and leave the briefing at that stage for now. I just want to run back through here. I apologize and make sure I didn't miss any important points. If you'll bear with me, folks.
Yeah.
I do appreciate it.
I'm not even 13 yet, and I still support MAGA.
All right, looks like we're good. I just want to close on this point. And again, to explain very quickly how our results come in Arizona.
Oops.
Just imagine 3 buckets. The first bucket is your 8 p.m. bucket. These are our early
Ain't
ballots.
that something?
Everything that has been processed up to the point when the counties are ready to report at 8 p.m. That's bucket number 1. Bucket number 2 is election day voters, not the voters who bring their ballot on election day, but the folks who actually vote on election day, filling out their ballot in person. That number, that set of numbers will be revealed through the evening tonight, starting sometime well after 8 p.m. Now, as a caveat there, most of our counties in Arizona are central tabulation, so the ballots have to be transported to a central tabulation location to be tabulated, and then those numbers will come out. Even our counties, however, where tabulation happens on site, those data cards or the USB sticks or whatever the technologies they use have to be transported back to the disconnected server physically so we can get those numbers up. That's bucket number 2, election day voters. And of course, the third bucket is all of the early ballots that are either handed in on election day or which have not been processed yet.
You know,
bucket number 3 will go on for several days. We expect we expect official results to be prepared 10 to 13 days, and I think I'm getting the high sign over here. Are we done, or do we have
10 to 13 days?
They wanted to know how you know it was Russian on the bomb threats, so maybe just clarify.
Yeah, how you know that?
Yeah, we're not going to reveal that at this moment in time. We're still making sure to be as clear as possible with that, with our federal and local, our federal partners on that specific. But look, Russia wants to show a lot of mistrust and distrust. They've been increasing their
Russia bad.
Her easiest path to
sort of directness in these attacks.
Give a fuck about this. Let's watch this.
70 that gets her right to the White House. But if she were to have a terrible night tonight and the blue wall were to collapse and Trump were to win all this, she has another path. Nevada, Arizona, hold Georgia, and flip North Carolina. She gets to 275 there. Again, if this is the night for Democrats, Hallie, as you know, they'd be having heart attacks all night, but she can still get there with that path.
Talk about then former President Trump's clearest and cleanest path to 270.
The easiest way to remember this, Hallie, for President Trump when you're watching election night tonight, if he kicks it East Coast style. Pennsylvania, he wins Pennsylvania, flips that, holds North Carolina, and flips Georgia back red. If he does this, look at his number, 270, he gets there. But if something were to happen and he doesn't win Pennsylvania, he has to win somewhere else in the Midwest. This is important. There is no Sun Belt strategy for President Trump. He has to win somewhere in the blue wall. He has to break through. If he can flip North Carolina, hold North Carolina, flip Georgia. If he wins Michigan, if he just picks off Nevada or Arizona, either one gets him there. Even the 6 in Nevada get him there. But if he can only win Wisconsin, he has to win in Arizona. He needs those 11 electoral votes to get to 270.
Let me ask you about a possibility that
Is this
we're
really
not anticipating
Asmund?
necessarily, but
This
it
is
could
really
happen. And that
Asmund?
is, what if nobody gets to 270 and it's
Chilling
269,
with
269?
Asmund,
It's a tie.
watching the
That can happen.
results.
So listen, let me give the blue wall to Vice President Harris.
Listen, I have a life outside of
She's at 270.
live
I'm gonna say,
streaming.
hold on, I'll give you all
Sometimes
the
I gotta get
Sun
up
Belt
and take care of the
states to President
dogs and all
Trump.
that type
Remember,
of
I
stuff.
told you,
So
you can't get there with that.
it's,
He's at
I can have
268.
Asmund
So we come to
be
Nebraska.
my
Nebraska has that
screen-
Where's
my
Waldo
backseat
effect right now on
streamer.
our map, and that's because
Then everybody is,
Nebraska gives out the
entertained.
electoral votes by total vote, popular vote for the state, but also by congressional district. Maine does this as well. So there's 3 congressional districts. They each give one. CD2, that's a battleground district in Nebraska. That's Omaha. Trump won it in 2016. If he wins it again, look what happens. 269 to 269.
Damn.
And you know what happens there? Do we go down that road?
We don't have to go all the way down the road, but we can say that road leads to Congress.
Yeah,
I don't think
Congress.
that's
The new
gonna
Congress
happen.
will essentially pick the president, the House, the Senate would pick the vice president.
You heard Tom lay out the importance of Pennsylvania. We're going to take you there when we come back, breaking down how voters all across the country feel about some of these key issues you've been talking about, like the
it's an
democracy,
hour and a half
immigration, abortion night.
until it's
It is
over.
election night here on NBC News.
All right. Damn, what's the fuck? Yeah, turn that shit down. Way too dank. Yeah, gamification. No, this is just the way it is. Damn, this dude loves to fucking talk. Shut the fuck up. I'll wait for this. Who do you think is gonna win? I think Trump's gonna win. I said it before, I say it again. Let's see where we're at. Ooh, he building up momentum. I think Trump right now, like what he should do, he should go out and do an acceptance speech, do a victory speech right now. Like before the polls are even closed, go out and do a speech.
Do it.
Yep, go up and just say that, yeah, we got 350 votes. It was crazy. Good job, guys. That's it. That'd be hilarious. It would be really fucking funny if that happened. Like last year? Yeah. Bush and Cheney did? Yeah, smart. If Trump gets 270, I would bet everything the Republicans going to file a lawsuit against Census Bureau and have this Supreme Court hand them the election. Ooh. Bro, if they try to pull in some weird extra rule to get Trump to win, people are going to lose their fucking minds. Oh, people are going to be so mad. I would look at other sites than Polymarket? No. I only look at the places where people put their money on the line. If people not willing to put their money on the line, I'm not going to listen to them. No. That's the way I see it. This song's annoying. Yeah, Robin Hood, I don't know. Elevators, yeah, I turned the shit off. Yeah, we're going to get back to it in a minute. They did that for Bush versus Gore, maybe. Other markets? Yeah, I'm not sure. Trump is back-to-back president? Oh, right, because he's been the president the whole time, right? The census has already admitted that New York should have at least one electoral college vote and Florida should at least have one more. Maybe, I'm not sure. Trump is going to lose? Y'all think he's going to lose? Ooh.
I already have the door open.
I mean, the thing is, if Trump loses, it's going to be his fault. Like, I mean, there were so many easy W's that he could have had that he didn't go with. And I actually think I feel like, especially with like how people feel about the economy, I feel like Trump should have had this one in the bag. Like, it should have been like a clean sweep. But I think that he, really took some risks and made some mistakes, especially like trying to push in on abortion and shit like that. Big mistake. Did you vote today? No. Poll chat. It's election day after all. I might poll people, but it's hard really to say what that's going to be. What's this?
We are back now with our special election coverage, Decision 2024, right here on NBC News. We are just over an hour now from the first battleground polls closing, and we've got that exit poll data coming in showing what is driving voters on some of these key issues. We asked this question: which one of these 5 issues matter most in deciding how you voted for president? You can see it there. State of democracy at 35%. The economy following.
What does that mean?
Abortion access after that, followed by immigration and foreign policy.
Yeah, and an interesting note that Chuck Todd just brought up, that in the state of democracy, when you dig a little deeper into that exit poll, it actually splits almost 50-50. So essentially, whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, the way you look at this issue is different, and that doesn't tell us too much. But it's interesting that it's more important than the economy at this point.
Yeah, and again, these numbers are early; they could shift a little bit, but there's some other pieces to this as well, including on abortion.
Yeah. So let's take a look at abortion, which comes closest to your position on the issue of abortion. This is what we asked: should it be legal in all cases, legal in most cases, legal in some cases? The first question was, who do you trust more to handle abortion? 50% for Kamala Harris, 44% for Trump. That's not a huge surprise. She was closing with abortion, traveling those battleground states with women, talking about the access to
Showed up in Texas, a state that has a very controversial abortion restriction law. Not because Texas is necessarily a battleground they think they're going to flip, but to be able to have that stage for that issue. Of course, former President Trump closed largely on immigration.
Okay, let's go to Pennsylvania right now. It is the key maybe to all the battleground states, the Keystone State. Jacob Soboroff on the ground for us in Pennsylvania. Jacob, tell us exactly where you are and what you're seeing tonight.
We're at Temple University, Tom, at a polling place that's got a 2-hour-long line. These folks have been waiting for 2 hours. I'm just going to make this short and sweet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different election machines over here. Let me split this line and tell you a little bit about what happened here. Earlier today, we reported how long the lines were. Well, the city of Philadelphia has showed up with 2 new election machines right now. These are going to get set up. The voters are going to be able to vote on them here. And hopefully those lines over there are going to go a little faster, guys.
Okay.
Jacob Soboroff live for us there in Pennsylvania. Are we going to be saying the word Pennsylvania 150 times tonight?
I think we're going to be saying it all night, maybe into tomorrow. That is for sure. So the first battleground polls close in about 90 minutes. We're going to take you there live as the key states start voting and we get the results in.
Then we're going to see 7:30, of course, polls closing in North Carolina, Ohio, and many more throughout the
Yo, just got here. How's your day? Hey, what's up, guys?
Right Decision 2024
I edit stuff. Dude, nice. I'm doing well.
Oh, boy.
Excited to be watching the election results. Especially with my boy Asmongold, dude.
Wait,
and my wife just got home.
How good by the Kamala Harris campaign? Wait, what? What do you mean it deletes your vote if you click on Trump? What? It's not a voting machine, it's a pinball machine. Yeah. Oh, God. Okay, I turned this shit down. Where's the rest of these? I'll look at some more. Damn, everybody's on a fucking commercial. It's annoying as hell. Okay, let's see what else is going on here. But yeah, I think it's really going to become... all
right, guys, I'm back.
It's going to become contentious, I would say.
I'm going to go by. All right, see you, dude. See you, dude.
There's only one button on the machine. There you go. And what's this? Red
Girls
Mirage,
Hoss,
look it
butt
up. It's a
stuff.
real effect. You typed that 2 or 3 times. I didn't read it the first time. There's a reason for that.
Hole's a hole, huh?
Yeah, there's a reason. Everybody knows what that is. People think it's going to happen. Here's the way I see it. I mean, it's going to be whatever the fuck, right? I mean, we don't really need to do a lot of projections at this point, right? I mean, it's literally going to be a few hours and we're going to know who wins. I personally think that it's going to be Trump for sure. You think that Kamala calling fake numbers and showing the camera out? No, I didn't see that. Reason for might be that missed. To be honest, don't be so strict. No, it's not that I missed it. I read everything in chat. People that type the same message regularly, more than once, it's annoying. That's really it. Pretty sure it's rigged for the first female president. Yeah, well then why didn't Hillary win? Yeah, I mean that's not true. That's stupid. Like I get that people like to make up bullshit, but like it's clearly not true. I mean, Hillary had way more clout than Kamala Harris, right? I mean, people hate Hillary Clinton, but also like I mean everybody knows who she is. So like if that was going to happen, it would have already happened. It's so weird to me. People vote on gender and shit. You think it's weird that people vote on gender? People vote on all kinds of stupid things. Also, like, identity politics are really strong. Like, because the reason why identity politics are so strong is because it's something that everybody, like, fundamentally has, right? It's like you're either white or not white. You're either black or not black, right? Everybody can define that you're a woman or you're a man, right? And, like, people figure it out. And they're like, okay, well, I'm going to vote based off of this. So, yeah, I think it absolutely matters. Let's see this.
Again.
We are not going back. An
Ooh.
unprecedented campaign.
Damn.
I'm no stranger to unlikely journeys.
It all comes down to tonight.
The key contests. Pennsylvania will be key.
If we win Michigan, we win the whole thing.
The biggest issues.
I will protect our jobs. I will protect our borders.
The government should not be telling her what to do with her body.
Oh.
Now, America decides.
That's right.
From
We're gonna figure it out.
News, this is Decision 2024. Here are Hallie Jackson and Tom Yamas.
Pretty cool, guys.
Hey everyone, welcome to an NBC News special report.
Like
we are
HBO
less
drama.
than 90 minutes
true.
away from the polls closing in that first key battleground state of Georgia. And we've got breaking news right now. New exit poll data just coming into us.
Okay, let's see it.
And I'm Hallie Jackson. And listen, this is our first look at some of the numbers on who is voting and what matters to the people who are voting, even with some folks, maybe somebody you know, still out there in polling lines in every state across the country.
And this is really significant because this is the data we're just getting from actual voters as they leave those polling places. So it tells us a lot, more than any of the opinion polling we've seen in the last few weeks. So let's talk about the issues, right? What's taking voters to the polls? Here, voters were asked about the most important issue to them: the economy, abortion, foreign policy, immigration. And look at that, Hallie, 35% saying the state of democracy, 31% on the economy.
I just wish I knew what this
14%
means.
on abortion. Again, we want to say this is the first wave of exit poll data. We want to be real careful about this. This was in 10 battleground states, but this is huge.
600 polling places across the country, early, in-person, mail-in, and election day of. That grain of salt is well noted, Tom, because these numbers could shift a little bit. But here's why this is so surprising and why we're pausing on that 35% on state of democracy. Because all along, and you know this for months, the economy has been the top issue that voters said would be driving them to the polls. And usually immigration was right up there in the
what's
top
up, Magnus?
two, followed
How you
by
doing, buddy?
abortion access. You can see here, abortion there, 14%
Good to see your
of
name.
voters say it was the most important issue to them, with immigration trailing. Now, again, these numbers could shift a little bit, but one other note on state of democracy, Tom, that can cut both ways. There are Republicans who are concerned about state of democracy. There are Democrats who say they're concerned about state of democracy.
Let's talk about this other exit poll. Who do you trust more to handle the economy? And remember, the president, he closed on immigration and the economy. Former President Trump, 51% saying Trump, 47% for Harris. We thought this divide might be bigger, and this may change as the night goes on, but that's not terrible news for Democrats right now.
No, the other piece of this is the issue that Vice President Harris largely closed on, and that is abortion access. Who do you trust more to handle abortion? It is no surprise here to see that she is leading on trust on this issue over former President Trump.
100%.
Yeah, it was a big issue. She was traveling with women all throughout states like Michigan, Pennsylvania to make sure she got that message out as well. Again, not a huge surprise here. And again, this could change, but this one right here likely will stand.
Donald Trump, of course, closing on immigration. This is a message that he has hammered now for months with his rhetoric on migrants in this country and on trust on immigration. Here he leads, again, consistent with the public polling that we've seen. But I want to bring in NBC's Chuck Todd now because, Chuck, there's some interesting stuff here with all of the noted caveats, with all of the warnings. We don't want to overread into it. Like, let's be super clear on that. But talk me through your takeaway.
Well, look, I think the biggest thing is the fact that when you take economy and immigration, which are the two strongest issues for President Trump, and the fact that neither one of them's the top issue. if you're in Mar-a-Lago right now, that makes you a little bit nervous. And I look, state of democracy.
Although I bet Mar-a-Lago would tell you we're not too super worried about it.
Of course, because that's you always have to always be projecting confidence on there. I get it.
Yeah.
But when you look at the fact that obviously abortion rights ahead of immigration.
Yeah.
That had not, by the way, that has been going back and forth in all of our polling. A lot of times it's how do you ask that question? And of course, when you ask, when we had been asking voters if there's a single issue you would vote on more than any other in polling that has been abortion rights, we didn't ask a question like that. But the state of the democracy question is interesting to me because look, I'm going to confess here. I don't think we're asking the right. I don't think we're giving the right punch to voters.
Like, what the fuck does that even mean?
Correct. Because if you think about it, we've offered them 5 specific issues, 4 specific issues: foreign policy, immigration, abortion, and the economy. And then we say state of the democracy.
Yeah.
So if you're
who doesn't want democracy?
Correct. So if you're a voter that says, I'm really motivated by sort of the current climate. Right, whatever that is, it's a cult. There's so many different ways you could describe it, but that tells you it's not a single issue that's getting you to the polls. You're reacting to the climate. There's a
dude, your first time voting. Congratulations, man.
Is on the ballot, right? Who are we as Americans?
How'd it feel? It feels pretty cool to get to go out and vote, man.
This is not to be dismissive of.
Let's go, Trump. Save America, man. Let's go.
There's a micro campaign specific on those issues, and then there's the macro. Who are we as Americans, right? And I think what we're finding out here is that. Maybe we need a better punch for people, but that's the way I view it. And when you look at the splits on this, not to give away too much, but when you look on the splits and you realize that it's a 50-50 essentially on which side of the aisle you're on, it tells me that's who those voters are. These are my way of life is on the ballot.
We've been talking about the gender divide since we've been talking about early voting and how voters may break for either candidate. Here we have it right here, Chuck. State of democracy, 36% for men, 33% for women. The economy, 34, 28. Abortion, 8, 19, and then immigration, 12, 10. Again, this is early. This might seem a little odd to viewers at home watching and looking at this thinking this is the most important issue, but this is the data we have right now.
Yeah, it is, of course. And, early data.
I could easily see that.
There's a running joke on Twitter already. This is the 20th anniversary of John Kerry's inauguration, right? Early exit polls, were so sunny for him. So any of us that have experienced that, you take it all with a grain of salt here. But if this is how voters were thinking
for
about
America,
this election, if this is the makeup,
dude.
He's
already got it all figured out.
The Team Harris, this is what they would want to see versus what Team Trump is saying.
Keep in mind, both candidates, right, over the course of the last month or so, nodded to this issue of who we are fundamentally. With very different visions that they had, right? Former President Trump, the country is in a dangerous and broken place, and he's the person who can come in and fix it. Vice President Harris, it will be more dangerous if Donald Trump is reelected, and she's the one who can represent that fresh start for people who might be exhausted.
Well, and it's interesting, if you want to look in the exit poll and say, boy, what is the evidence that Trump's doing well? Well, by the way, Joe Biden's job rating is really low in here, 41%. That's very low. People are dissatisfied with the direction of the country. But just like with state of democracy, you can view the direction of the country negatively because of Donald Trump's existence, in the political scene. And that may be why you picked that number. And I think we're seeing some evidence of that too. So look, I do think
too broad of a question.
What this exit poll is saying, and what I really believe this election, this is a macro election. This is an election about who we are. This is not about the economy and inflation. Certainly they've been the mood music of the conversation, but the voters are what this is telling me is they went in there with a much bigger concern about the direction of the country.
Yeah, and it's still very early. It's actually just getting started. But we do have some interesting data on the economy. Christine Romans has been digging into that, which sort of gives us a better idea of what voters are thinking.
That's right. It is early. Think of these as breadcrumbs. And way down the line, we're going to know how this election is going to turn out. But these
anyone else felt like that was a reality show?
And they could change, and we could get more of them. But the bottom line at the very early hour here,
see what prize America wins next. Yeah, man.
Not so good, 35%. Poor, 34%. That is a big number on the condition of the U.S. economy. When you ask people about their family finances compared to 4 years ago.
In a lot of ways, it is a reality show.
Question you ask every 4 years, right? Also, think about 4 years ago. 4 years ago, there was a pandemic.
20% differential, that's
people were wearing masks to vote. People were changing how they voted and how they lived their lives because of a public health crisis, right? So a very different scenario this time around. Only 30% say it's about the same today. 24% say better. 45% say it's worse today in terms of their family finances. So we know there's been this negative mood music, Chuck, for months now about inflation, about the overall feeling of the economy, even as all the top line numbers Hallie and Tom, have remained really strong.
Christine, but before you go, do we know if Harris was able sort of to detach herself from President Biden on the issue of the economy yet? Do we have that data yet? Do we know anything about that?
I don't know that yet, but I'll tell you something.
Yeah,
when
I don't
I
think so.
see such a big spread between the good and bad for how people feel about the economy, and then you see who's better to handle the economy,
Damn,
Harris
look
or
at
Trump with only a
inflation.
4-point spread. That's interesting. That's tight in terms of what voters are saying about
It's like
who can
over
handle it best.
50%.
In
53%.
otherwise, with a
Damn.
moderate hardship to a severe hardship, that is
Inflation.
remarkable. 74% saying
That's a
that
big number
inflation
combined,
is a big number for them. So we've been hearing people complain about inflation. Voters told us inflation was a hardship for their family. But you look at who's better to handle the economy, only a 4-point spread. It's early. Things can change. We're going to get more data, but these
I think people will perceive Trump to be better to handle the
Christine
economy.
Romans, we thank you for that. Hallie, I'm going to send it over to you.
Because the economy
Thanks, Tom,
seemed
because
better
we've got
under
Peter
Trump.
Alexander and Garrett Haake as our campaign correspondents
Yeah,
covering
that's
both
what I
Team
think is gonna
Harris
happen.
and Team Trump out in the field. As we're just getting that exit poll data showing the favorability for each candidate. And I
Okay,
want to
here we
start
go.
with Vice President Harris. 48% see her favorably, 50% unfavorable. Peter, let me ask you, what's the sense you're getting from the campaign as they've been watching not just the exits come in, but also some of that data from precincts, folks reporting, et cetera?
Yeah, well, certainly the favorable number is a number they feel good about, that they perform better than former President Trump and Joe Biden right now. Obviously, there was some concern that Joe Biden could be sort of a weight, an albatross around the neck of Vice President Harris, but she's outperforming him by 7 points in terms of favorability right now. That's something that the folks in Wilmington or the folks who will be here at Howard University tonight alongside the Vice President feel good about. I'll tell you what else we're hearing from a senior campaign official within the course of the last several minutes. They're saying one thing they view as encouraging right now is extremely high turnout among college voters. Particularly, they give us the example of what they're seeing in the state of Pennsylvania, pointing to the campuses of Lehigh and Lafayette. They say at least at one of those campuses, there are lines that extend for up to 7 hours right now. They say the campaign is sending support and surrogates to keep students in line. A separate senior campaign advisor telling me just moments ago that support comes in the form of some of the stars of the films from the Avengers series.
See the Facebook
Paul
post I
Rudd,
posted?
Mark Ruffalo, and Don Cheadle, among others, will be heading to campus to try to energize those students, to keep them in line and to make sure they stick around, to make sure those votes are cast over the course of the day. A separate number we're seeing about another state that's going to be one to watch today is North Carolina. North Carolina is interesting because it's a state that obviously Donald Trump has been putting a lot of energy into, a state that he claims publicly that he is going to win right now, but he has been there many times, many more than Kamala Harris, which may be an indication that they're not quite as confident by their internal data as they are projecting publicly. The campaign, the Harris campaign, telling us that according to their numbers, the numbers they're seeing right now, rural Republican turnout is, as they say, lower. It's based on a small sample, they say, of rural voters at this time, but they say they're seeing a much larger turnout than they may have expected in cities like Durham, a big, dense, bluer part of that state that could be a positive sign early on, at least, for the Harris folks. Hallie?
North Carolina is an interesting one, Peter, especially with Team Trump dumping a lot of money into that state late in the game. Peter Alexander, thank you very much. Tom?
All right, Hallie, thank you. Let's take a look at the favorability for former President Trump. So here's what we have from our exit polls right here. Unfavorable, 54%. This is the opinion of the former president. Favorable, 44%.
Orange
He's
man,
unfavorable,
bad.
slightly higher than Vice President Harris. I want to go over to Garrett Haake
Not good.
at Trump headquarters in Palm. Okay, we had Garrett Haake. It's his live broadcast. Some things happen fast. Sometimes we have people, sometimes we don't. Things are changing on election night. But
y'all think, wait, is that one
say
fake?
goodbye to Garrett Haake and I'll say hello to Hallie Jackson.
Hey, friend, I'm here. I've always got your back.
So listen, it's hard to kind of parse those numbers. 54% unfavorable for Trump, about 50 for Kamala Harris for the vice president.
Yeah, more
Still
people
early
hate
in
Trump,
the night,
definitely.
but a little bit better
Guaranteed.
for Democrats in that poll.
Keeping in mind that both of these candidates are trying to say that they would be the better one for the country over the course of the next 4 years. Can I ask you, Tom, since you're here at the big board, which is going to be your sort of dancing partner throughout the night, to pull up the road to 270? Because remember,
people on the news talking out of their asses, of course, dude.
First one to 270 has it in the bag. Talk us through the dynamics here.
Yeah, so we're going to start.
Wish you knew what the
election night where we
statistics
left off
mean.
in 2020, right? This is the way the map.
They don't mean
ended up.
anything
The
right now.
7 battleground states aren't penciled in. A reminder: President Biden, he won 6
Give it a
of
couple
those 7
hours, they might
battleground
start
states.
making
The
some
only one he
sense.
didn't win was North Carolina. So let's talk about Kamala Harris's path tonight. Her easiest path to 270: she wins Pennsylvania, wins Michigan, wins Wisconsin. She holds that blue wall. Hallie, you see the number right there. She gets to 270.
It's over.
But if she were to have a terrible night and she were to lose the blue wall, say it were to collapse and Trump were to win all those states, she has one more path, but this is going to give Democrats heart attacks. Nevada, Arizona, holds Georgia and flips North Carolina. She gets there at 275.
What about former President Trump's cleanest and clearest path, Tom?
You know, for former President Trump, just think about this when you're watching tonight. Remember the East Side, right?
Let's go, Kamala, save America.
If he flips Pennsylvania, holds North
Hey, there you go,
Carolina,
man. If that's your
and flips
opinion.
Georgia, he gets to 270 right there.
Damn.
But if something were to happen and he were to lose Pennsylvania, he has to win somewhere else in the blue wall. He doesn't have a Sun Belt strategy. He has to either win Michigan or Wisconsin if he's holding those two southern states. If he wins Michigan, either Nevada or Arizona do it for him. Nevada, even with just 6, gives it to him. But if he can't win Michigan, if it's only Wisconsin, he has to win in Arizona. This is where the GOP really has to fight hard to get those votes. 272, he gets there.
And depending on the spread, Tom, in other words, depending on how close or not
I
this
think he'll
race
win
is, if
Arizona.
we're waiting on Arizona or Nevada, everybody wants to know when might we know the results. That could be the scenario in which you and I are sitting for the next 4 days.
Well, 4 days, maybe even the weekend. You'll remember
Trump
2020,
wins,
we were waiting a long time for certain states. Arizona, look, everyone is telling us this time around, and again, take this with a grain of salt, that the states have improved, that the reporting has improved. We should get things sooner. We're hearing about states that took a long time in 2020. We may get them earlier tonight, which is going to make for a very exciting election night. It might make for an earlier election night, but you never know what can happen.
Something else that would potentially be exciting and rare would be if this was a
Hey, thanks,
269
Adam.
to
Appreciate it,
269
man.
tie. If nobody got to 270.
People's political minds, if they're political fans, their minds would explode. So here's how it happens. The easiest way. She wins the blue wall, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. You'll say, Tom, 270. She goes to the White House. And I say, hold on, Hallie Jackson, hold on. And I give Trump the Sun Belt, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. He's at 268, and you're like, Tom, did you go to school?
There, dude.
Yeah, did you get that? No. Okay, so Nebraska, it's got that Where's Waldo status. And the reason why it has that Where's Waldo status is because it gives away electoral votes through popular vote, the whole state. If you win it, you get 2. Each congressional district, though, you each get 1. If Trump were to win that, like we said, if he wins it, it goes 269, 269. He won it in 2016, that congressional district. It could happen. It'd be very hard. But if this happened, the new Congress, the House,
Dude, you're stacked on cash. This election doesn't affect you at all. We need Trump to win this.
At least, kind of
like 50
complicated.
hours.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things we were talking about, too, the favorability and unfavorability for both Vice President Harris and for former President Trump here. We now see those fave-unfaves for the former president. And again, underwater, 54% unfavorable, 44% favorable.
And we were talking about him all night.
I feel like inflation is because of
So
COVID.
the unfavorable favorables are in. Donald Trump.
That's my opinion.
Manifest when it comes to unfavorable, so you wouldn't be ahead. I guess you'd be under. But I do want to ask you something. People were watching former President Trump today when he was voting in West Palm Beach with his wife Melania. He sounded a little tired. He sounded a little hoarse. He had been talking nonstop for the last 4 or 5 days on the campaign trail.
Because he's old and fat.
Should people misinterpret that? Because I know there was some sort of Monday morning quarterbacking saying, "Oh, he's tired. He doesn't look positive. Maybe it's the body language." What are you hearing from the Trump campaign?
Look, Tom, former's older than me. I was on that same overnight flight with him last night from Michigan back to Palm Beach. Beach, landed about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was tired too at that voting place. So I don't know that I would read too much into that as any particular signal. There was a brutal schedule here the last 24 hours of this campaign with Donald Trump trying to do something not about those unfavorability numbers, which the Trump campaign has long understood are kind of baked in. There's not a person in this country who doesn't have sort of an already pretty well-established opinion of Donald Trump. They were trying to attack Kamala Harris on the issue sets rather than make him more popular, except I would say on the edges with some of these podcast interviews that they were trying to do, where they thought they might be able to introduce him to young men in particular who didn't already have fully formed opinions of Donald Trump, convince them that maybe he was a more normal guy, sort of a more laid-back guy than the public perception.
Dude, I'll be honest. You telling me that Donald Trump is the one that stopped oil projection is the first time I've ever heard of that. Unless you're talking about like overseas oil production and buying that.
A significant majority of Americans saying
because I think Trump is all about oil production in America.
To the countries that they came from. Tom, this is a staple of every single Donald Trump rally, interview, press conference, appearance for the last 2 years. His idea of the world's largest mass deportation program. The voters are telling us in those exit polls they don't agree.
Garrett, just before you go, give me one data point you're hearing from the Trump campaign that gives them hope tonight.
Fake news. Hold up. What?
It's rural voters, Tom. They think there's a landslide out there and rural voters coming out from. If that's true, we'll see it one tiny county at a time across the country tonight.
It'll be a rural-urban divide tonight, all those battleground states pretty much. Garrett, hey, great reporting as always.
That's fucked up.
Great work on the campaign trail. All right, Hallie, I'm going to send it over to you.
Tom, thanks, because we are just over an
Yeah,
hour
I
away
think he
now
got
from
other
the
countries to
everybody has
stop
been waiting for. Actual
buying
vote
oil
counts
from
in the
Iran,
battleground states, 7 o'clock.
which we
watch
don't
for
agree with
Georgia.
politically
That's when
or
Arizona is there.
culturally in a
7:30,
lot of
it's
ways.
going to be North Carolina. It's going to be Ohio. And then
So
8
that could have
o'clock
been
Eastern.
there could have been a
This is the
result
big
in
one
some
because
price
that
hike
is
from
when
that.
polls close in
But I don't want to do
battleground
business with those
Pennsylvania.
fucking
You see
people
it there.
anyways.
As Tom has laid out, that could potentially be ball game.
Especially if
for these
they've been
candidates. We know that
supporting
is so
Hamas,
critical
which
for
is
Tom.
bullshit.
Coming up right here on
I know it's not
NBC,
all,
the night
all
is just getting
Palestinians,
started.
but
New data out on these exit polls on how you, the American public, feel about issues like abortion and the border.
Stay right here with our special coverage of Election Day 2024 continuing on NBC News.
I'll turn this shit down a little bit. Yeah. And so anyway, this feels dystopian, like the way everything is presented. Nah, why? I mean, they always done it like this. You know, conveniently 2016, when everything went downhill, was completely uncontested. Everybody agrees 2016 is when the world started going to shit. That's right. I'm talking about Harambe.
You know, the only way to be know if they're being honest.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't give a damn about abortion. I feel like abortion is, you know, like, obviously,
Just
like,
to listen,
more
man.
people
Go
that are
listen to
women care about
their
it. I mean,
talks.
it's
You know,
pretty
Joe
obvious
Rogan
that,
had
like, there's a
on
gender divide with
Trump
abortion. I wonder why.
and his vice
But,
president.
you know, we'll just have to wait
Maul
and
didn't
see
want to
what
come
happens.
on. He doesn't seem to want to do any like long form
No matter who
interviews,
wins,
which
be respectful and kind.
you know,
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't know
I'm sure
why,
that's gonna
but-
happen. Yeah, that'll be okay. Show Fox.
I wish
and
he did.
CNN. What else are they doing? What are they doing over in CNN? A bunch of fucking nothing, like just doing whatever. First projections, just some random ass shit. I don't even know if this is actually CNN, but yeah, it's just like this random guy. And what's this? This guy. I remember this guy came up, started talking mad shit about Russia. He's got 192,000 people watching this on Fox. Like, this one's got 72,000 right here. Now, Peanut is 2024's Harambe? Maybe. 2016 was the year for video games. That's why Trump won, bro. It was the gamer vote. That's it. If Trump wins, he'll be 2-0 for denying women the presidency. Actually true. Yeah, you're right. I never thought of it like that. I didn't, but yeah, that's a good way to say it. Wow, you think Trump can affect Russia and Ukraine war? I don't know. Probably, but like I'm not sure. It depends on, like, I'm sure could he? Yeah, but like would that be a good thing? Maybe, maybe not. It's really hard to say. I'm not really sure what's on the table with that. Yeah, I don't know. So many chuds in chat. Well, I mean, I usually let people, like, in my chat, like, I let people say whatever the fuck they want, right? And so, you know,
the way it should be,
good
boys.
or bad or anything like that, I kind of just let them go and say whatever they want. I had an awkward moment with a coworker who said he never voted before. His girlfriend mom pressing him to go with him after work wholeheartedly. I'm the only person that said to him, bro, it's your vote. Do whatever you want. It's yours. Let him be pissed. Yeah, there's always people that think that they have, this is a big problem. People think they have like a moral authority to like tell you what to do with your vote. Like, it's crazy. But that happens from everybody. It's not like just Democrats that do that.
No.
Everybody does this.
No.
Yeah. Sorry.
No.
Jesus.
Oh.
And welcome back. We are back now with our election coverage. The country in a lot of places still voting, but we have some breaking news, which is our first exit polls that have just come out.
That's right. Remember, the first sense that we're getting, early sense of what the top issues are for voters. And you can see the pie chart here, right? 35% say the most important issue to them is the state of democracy, followed by the economy at 31%, then abortion,
Boys, if you don't have
14%,
dogs, get
immigration,
dogs.
and foreign policy following. Interesting here,
Let me
because
look at some
remember,
other
for
shit.
months, that public polling had
see
suggested
if
that,
there's
in
anything else
fact,
to pull up.
the economy was the biggest and most important issue to voters,
Yeah.
especially with those inflation numbers, Tom.
Yeah, and also, you know, we have to tell our viewers, state of democracy can break both ways. It depends if you're a Republican or you're a Democrat and how you look at that issue. The
What a
president
what a
closed with
stupid
economy and
question, state of
immigration, and that was the
democracy.
second issue, the economy, but not as high as maybe Republicans wanted.
That's exactly right. Of course, Vice President Harris, Tom, closing on abortion.
Okay, yeah, and let's talk about abortion, right? And this is which comes closest to your position. Abortion should be illegal, 30%, legal, 66%.
Yeah,
That's
a huge number for Democrats.
The Vice President had made this a key part of her platform.
I kept telling y'all this shit. Like, nobody, people don't want
like
this.
Texas, Georgia, Florida, where access to abortion is front and center after either controversial restrictive laws.
How the fuck does abortion matter that much?
And it was somewhat a gamble, right? Because abortion wasn't necessarily in the news at the time because it was way past Roe v. Wade, but it was something Democrats knew would drive voters to the polls.
Well, they saw it in the midterms in 2022, and they did better than expected, largely on the back of course, that decision that overturned Roe versus Wade. And we have been talking all night about these key battlegrounds. You are going to be talking about those key battlegrounds. One of them, of course, North Carolina. This is a state still reeling from Hurricane Helene, which has been the center of a major misinformation campaign, in part amplified by former President Trump. Our exit poll asked, is federal hurricane aid going to people who need it? And you can see the numbers here. 49% said yes. 46% said no. I want to get to Sam Brock, who's in North Carolina. And a question since that hurricane had hit, Sam, was going to be, will this affect people making it to the polls, getting their ballots in? What are you seeing?
They'd probably still be able to do it. That was a while ago.
Sure. Let me start with part A, Hallie and Tom. Good to be with you. I'm in this tiny precinct right now, about 15 or 20 minutes outside of Ashland,
fake news?
County. And what's amazing is they just celebrated 1,000 people voting just in this tiny precinct. Guys, the reason that it's relevant as we see the last voters here that are lining up, we have about an hour and a half left, is the fact that you had another location where this was supposed to be that's still having helicopter supplies dropped in for victims of Hurricane Helene, as officials here are trying to coordinate and figure out where people will go to vote. And yet, despite all of that, you only had about a quarter of all the election sites in this entire county that were impacted in some way, whether it's combining with an existing polling site or having to move it all together. But folks seem to be finding where they need to go. The early voting numbers in Buncombe were at about 58%.
That kid's voting? Yeah, he just voted for Kanye.
So we are, in fact, Hallie, to your question, seeing people come out and actually exercise their civic duty and be able to vote. As far as the misinformation component of this is concerned, though, I did have a conversation recently with a young couple that just voted for the first time. They are, in many ways, emblematic of how a lot of folks feel. It's not necessarily that they think that FEMA was only giving out $750, as was that first lie, frankly, that was out there for a couple of weeks, or that FEMA was redirecting funding from, disaster relief to the border, or any of the other things that were out there. They said that they didn't think that the community was doing a good job of disseminating water and food supplies to the people that need it. And that was a real tangible impact that affected their votes. And I'm hearing that not just from that young couple, but people who are voting across the county, guys.
The state where you are, Sam, there's also another race that a lot of people in North Carolina and well beyond are watching, and that is NC1, the state's first congressional district, which could not only be a factor for the balance of power in the House of Representatives, but could also give us an early look at some of the trend lines as far as who is turning out and where, right?
It could. So we're talking about Don Davis right now,
bro.
who
See
actually
that guy?
won that previous congressional election. By
They
about
got
5
Bigfoot
percentage
out
points,
here
but there was
voting.
a mid-cycle redistricting, Hallie, and the reality is that there were fewer black voters in this district now. More right-leaning parts of, say, the Outer Banks area of North Carolina were added, and suddenly he's in a dogfight with Lori Buckout, who's a businesswoman. And the question becomes, how does this speak reflectively to what's going on across the country? Well, certainly in terms of younger voters turning out, that's part of it. But also, North Carolina is a state where there are more registered Democrats by about 100,000 than Republicans, and yet redistricting, especially when you're talking about the House, matters a whole lot because there is a supermajority of Republicans in the state legislature. This, in some respects, is a reflection of that.
Sam Brock, live for us there in North Carolina. Sam, thank you.
North Carolina is going to be such a big story. We are tracking the latest exit polls as they come in, and the first polls in battleground Georgia are set to close soon.
Stay with us for our NBC News special coverage of Election Night 2024 tonight, even into tomorrow morning.
1 hour,
Savannah
gentlemen.
and Lester are going to take you all the way through right here on NBC News.
Dude, it's gonna be so interesting what happens.
Oh boy. Trump is announcing his victory? Damn, what took so long? Yeah, man. Finally. Remember a South Park episode about the douche and a turd?
Hey.
Yeah. Man, this is going crazy. I do think a lot of people are kind of expecting to see some kind of crazy ass shit happen. Yeah. Cinema already stolen election? Yeah. That's right. Google Trends show people searching, looking up the term, did Joe Biden drop out? Now, I don't want to say I told you so. I told you. I said people didn't want to believe me. Everybody thought I was lying. They were like, "There's no way this shit's real." I said people like y'all don't know how stupid people are, man. Yeah, I called it. He said people will be looking for Biden on the ballot. Yeah, it's sad. People don't want to listen. That's the reason why. That's what it all comes down to. They're afraid of knowing the truth. It's not surprising anymore. I know. What the fuck happened? I went to vote for Biden today and he wasn't on there. Yeah, it's that voter fraud shit, man. Like they're trying to get in on it again. That's what it is. Check Twitter. Trump deleted his tweet about cheating. No, he didn't. It was on Truth Social. It wasn't on Twitter to begin with. Yeah, Philadelphia and Detroit, heavy law enforcement is there. Uh-oh. Yeah, I bet. Ooh, they cheat. He coping already? Yeah, no, I'm waiting to see. Massive cheating? Oh, yeah.
News lives in the now. Look at this. You can't even see anything anymore.
Let's break down what we know.
You gotta see this. News for the generation.
I see what's happening in the UK.
NBC News Now.
I just think it's so funny, man. It's so funny that did Joe Biden drop out as trending?
Night on NBC News.
I tried to tell people
right now.
They wouldn't listen.
The race, a dead heat.
Make America great again.
We are not going.
Yep.
An unprecedented campaign.
Oh, shit.
I'm no stranger to unlikely journeys. It all comes down to tonight. The key contests. Pennsylvania will be key.
If we win Michigan, we win the whole thing.
The biggest issues.
I will protect our jobs. I will protect our borders.
The government should not be telling her what to do with her body. Now, America decides.
Yeah, I think if Trump loses, it's going to be because of abortion.
From NBC News, this is Decision 2024.
I think that's going to be the reason.
Hallie Jackson.
I'm Hallie Jackson, and we are coming on the air here on NBC News with brand new exit poll data. Our first early look at what voters think, what matters to them. All of it as the first battleground polls are closing less than an hour from now in the state of Georgia. That is going to be crucial. We're going to take a look at some of this exit poll data as it's coming into us. We've got our team in the field spread out across campaigns, coast to coast as well.
Abortion, horrible campaign.
I think that was Erie County, Pennsylvania. The idea being,
like that
what do people think right after they cast their ballots? They come out at some 600 polling locations across the country, and they tell these exit pollsters how they voted, why they voted, and when they decided to make their decision. So let's get into it here. The issues that are driving people out. We asked voters, what is the most important thing to you between foreign policy, abortion access, the economy, immigration, and the state of democracy? And you can see it here. The top issue, again, based on these early exit poll numbers, interestingly, is the state of democracy at 35%. That is followed by the economy at 31%, abortion 14%, and then immigration and foreign policy after that. Why?
Sorry.
Why is this so interesting? It's because for months now, voters have consistently been telling public pollsters that the economy and inflation were the most important issues to them. So let's take a look at who these voters said they trusted more on each of these issues. On the economy, it is...
We already saw this 50 fucking times.
Fall the way that we expect them to. How about Trump's path? Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. That's all it's going to take. Those are the easiest paths for both candidates. Of course, like you mentioned, though, that's not going to be the only story.
This is Fox News.
We're going to be tracking the balance of power in both chambers of Congress as well. This is going to be pivotal. We also got maps to show you for the Senate and the House. This is how we're breaking down the Senate. We just want to illustrate here that all these darker colored pips, these are seats that are not up for grabs. Everything in the center, these are the seats where we're seeing challenges. As you can see, many more blue seats on the defense compared to red. Democrats have a slim majority in the Senate right now, 51 to 49.
That is a majority.
It's pretty much all but guaranteed at this point that West Virginia, Senator Joe Manchin, who's not running for re-election, his seat is going to flip independent to red. Jim Justice, the popular two-term governor in West Virginia, likely going to be flipping that seat. So that is already going to be one seat that the Democrats are going to be losing. There's a number of other competitive Senate seats, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. Those are pretty much seats the Democrats are going to need to win if they want to maintain their control. There's also some seats where the Republicans could be on the defense. There's been a lot of chatter about whether or not Colin Allred can actually outpace Ted Cruz in Texas. There's an interesting race in Florida with Rick Scott. And then an independent challenger coming out of nowhere, giving us an unexpected challenge in a state that nobody expected a senatorial challenge to happen. So that's what we're tracking in the Senate. Finally, before we go, Andrew, let's talk about the House here. Again, a lot of gray. 218. That's going to be the magic number. This map is much more complex. We're starting to see every single district. There's competitive districts from as far east as Maine to as far west as Alaska. So many competitive races on the West Coast, including in southwestern Washington, Bend, Oregon, the Central Valley in California, Southern California. Those are House races that could determine the balance of the House, and those are races that may not be called for a long time. So I say all that to say, Andrew, that this building is important tonight because it's going to let us know just how powerful of a president we're going to be talking about.
You know, that's so true, Austin, depending on who wins the presidency tonight. You know, will they have a unified government on Capitol Hill or a divided government on Capitol Hill?
Yeah, that's true.
You
If
know,
Trump
will Chuck Schumer in the Senate keep his job? Will Speaker Johnson on the House side keep his job? All of those questions remain outstanding right now. Austin, thanks so much. If it's election night, you do need a map. You got a map, and we'll check in very soon here. In the meantime, though, so many of these storylines will be happening on social media, particularly. We're going to get a lot of our news there, because even on election night, breaking
social
news
media
will happen
from the
live,
social
raw,
media,
and unfiltered, as it usually does.
Fox
and to join
is getting
us,
their news from social
to
media
track
too.
all things on social media. My colleague there in the Live Now newsroom, Christina Evans, and Christina, what are you watching for tonight on social media?
Yeah, Andrew, it's great to be here with you guys on election night in Live Now's Social Center. That's what we're kind of calling it at this point. So if you do have a phone that's next to you, as many of us do when we're watching television, pull it out right now. Download some of those apps that we're talking about. X, also TikTok and Instagram. You can find us there at Live Now Fox. So on those social media platforms, I'll be guiding you through some of those other top headlines that we're seeing pop up on social media. I do want to show you just a look now as what we're dealing with here in our social center. Here's the look. We've got all of our boards in here pulling in these posts from X as well as Instagram and TikTok as things are starting to break on the internet. And when it comes to some of those storylines, an example of one that we're going to be following right now, I want to show you here on your screen a look of a story that's now coming out of Milwaukee. So this is some breaking news that we did just get into our newsroom as well. The city of Milwaukee says that it will recount around 30,000 absentee ballots after discovering each of the 13 high-speed tabulators here at Central Count had an open door. Right now, officials aren't sure of how that happened. They will zero out those machines and start again.
Is it
now, this
rigged?
is according to our news partners there at Fox 6 in Milwaukee. But again, another important storyline that we're covering there in Milwaukee. So what we have learned is that the city spokesperson, Jeff Fleming, said that those tabulators were sealed. But the doors to those machines were not properly closed. This issue, though, involved early absentee and in-person ballots and has affected all 13 tabulators. Live look that we have there in the city of Milwaukee as we're continuing to follow some of these breaking stories. That's just an example of some of those storylines that we're going to be following here on social media. Again, as you're stepping away from the TV, maybe you need to go pick up your kids from school or run a quick errand to the grocery store. Pick up your dinner tonight. Make sure you have your phone with you. You can follow us at Live Now Fox. I'm going to push our TikTok platform right now because we'll be there very active giving you those latest updates. So Andrew, sending it back over there to you. But again, you can find us on Live Now socials as well throughout the night.
All right, Christina Evans, thanks so much. You're going to be very busy. We'll be checking in with you periodically here.
Stop the count? Yeah.
All right, in the meantime here, we are well underway now in our election night coverage.
Oh my gosh, I was on mute.
A few states, not a lot.
Oh no.
About to some parts of those states polls have closed there. I'm talking about Indiana. I'm talking about Kentucky. So we will get some of those results in.
I told you the machines
here,
was
of
rigged.
course, at the top of the next hour, some of these major battleground states, polls will close there. North Carolina and Georgia will have our eyes on that as well. Let's just give you a sense of what we're watching for right now. We have all of these live pictures. And
Just
that's
the
what
way
we
it
do
is.
here, of course. You see there inside of the Trump campaign watch party as well. And that's in West Palm Beach, where this will all unfold tonight. Now, for the other campaign, the Harris campaign, this is at Howard University outside the nation's capital. Of course, you know Vice President Harris is an alum of Howard University, a historically black college and university. And that is where she has chosen to host her campaign election night watch party and rally here. So we also have some of these vantage points coming to us from polling locations. We just brought you that news out of Milwaukee there. So some snafus and flare-ups. But let's take our first commercial break of this hour. We'll be back in just a moment.
All right, we're gonna go over to this other ship. Give me a second. Let me look at it. Oh, sorry. Oh, look at this.
Harris and the Trump campaigns, as we're just getting our look now at favorability ratings for each of the candidates. I want to show you here. Donald Trump will start here.
People hate Orange Man.
54% of voters view him unfavorably, 44%
Exit poll
favorably.
data.
But Dasha, as you well know,
60%.
part of the strategy here for the Trump campaign is to take that 44% and make sure that they get to the polls, that they turn out and vote. It's about supercharging the people who already back him.
There it is.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Check
and a
this.
large focus for that base
61.
is men.
It went down.
Heard Christine Romans there just talk about the gender gap. I, from being out in the field, would almost call it like a gender chasm, a gender Grand Canyon. It is so stark, this divide, and it could be the defining factor for this election. And you can see that in just the closing messages that we watched from those candidates. Former President Trump last night got the endorsement of the nation's most popular podcaster, Joe Rogan. That is likely to maybe help him with men, especially young men. He's hugely influential. Not likely to help him with women. He did bring out conservative commentator Megyn Kelly, who was actually pretty critical of his approach with women, but she tried to help him make
I was
that
the one that asked about
pitch to female voters. But he's really, Hallie, been leaning into talking
Trump's
points
talking about
that
Rosie
are
O'Donnell was
more,
fat.
catering to men and platforms that cater more to men. The other thing that we're seeing from him just moments ago, he's already posting on Truth Social saying that there's a lot of talk about massive cheating in Philadelphia, saying law enforcement is coming. We got a response from D.A. Krasner saying that the only talk about massive cheating has come from one candidate, Donald J. Trump, and there is no factual basis whatsoever with law enforcement to support this wild allegation. We have seen him sowing seeds of doubt about this election with no evidence to support anything nefarious, Hallie.
An important reality check there. Dasha Burns, live for us in South Florida. Thank you. Let's take a look now at the favorability for Vice President Harris. You can see it here now. 50% of exit polled voters say that they have an unfavorable opinion of her versus 48% who say that they have a favorable opinion of her. In other words, that they like her, that they are into her, if you will. Let me bring in Peter Alexander, who's live for us just outside Howard University in Washington, where the vice president is holding her watch party. Peter, give us a sense of what you're hearing and seeing from the campaign at this moment.
Well, I can tell you what I'm hearing right now, and it's a lot of loud music as they get ready for a celebration here tonight. They are projecting confidence and hoping this night works out very well, but we'll save that for a little bit later. To the favorability numbers right now, I think particularly what is satisfying or is viewed as a good sign among Harris campaign officials with whom I'm speaking is the fact that Kamala Harris, the vice president's favorability, is at 48%. Joe Biden's is at 41%. She's well outperforming him right now. Of course,
it's not hard to do.
Concerns that the sense that Americans thought the country was headed in the wrong direction.
Indiana, 71% Trump.
Largely been dissatisfied with President Biden's handling of his time in office. Could have an impact on her. Ultimately, it's likely in part without him to have to get out of this race. But she is not only outperforming President Biden, she's also outperforming former President Donald Trump at 44% right now. And what's also striking to me is in the NBC News poll, Hallie, as you know, that we put out only a matter of days ago, Americans had sort of a rosier view of Donald Trump's time in office now than they did at the time itself. 48% saying that they like the way he handled his time in office, which is notable because his favorability right now, according to these exit polls, early exit polls, is at 44%. So that number has come down a little bit as well. So those are some of the things we're going to keep close eyes on over the course of this evening. A couple other things that we're watching, campaign advisors are flagging to reporters like myself, reaching out and speaking to them. They are seeing large numbers among young voters, particularly on college campuses. We were told specifically about Lehigh with a 7-hour line only a short time ago. They're sending more voting machines there, election officials are, and the campaign sending more support in the form of some of its surrogates to keep those folks in line in hopes that they'll come out in favor of Kamala Harris.
Yeah, Pennsylvania is so critical to that campaign and to the former president's campaign as well. Peter Alexander, I hope you got your coffee handy. We'll be talking with you, I know, in just a little bit. We're also getting exit polls out of not just the national landscape here, but some of those key swing states. Remember, exit pollsters post up at some 600 locations all across the country. So let's get a look at some of the results here. And I want to start here with the blue wall. So remember, that's Pennsylvania, that's Michigan, that's Wisconsin. Favorability, unfavorability. Again, favorable. Both candidates here are below 50%. This largely tracks to a degree to what we saw nationally. Sunbelt, very similar story here too. I want to get to the fact that polls are starting to close now. Looking at my watch in just about 45 minutes in some of those key battlegrounds. We're going to start on the East Coast. We're going to start with Georgia. And you can see Indiana, Kentucky, Vermont, Virginia, South Carolina as well. But it's Georgia that we're going to be watching for, that you should be watching for as well. 30 minutes later, you've got North Carolina. This is one that is so fascinating here. Remember, former President Trump won this state twice, but it looks like it is, based on public polling, a very close race. And then at 8 o'clock, buckle up, because that's when it hits, right? Pennsylvania, so the all-important battleground here, along with a slew of other states, including some with key Senate races, for example, like in Maryland. Ohio also has one.
Give me a second. Let me look at this.
In Milwaukee because of this error, and you got some clarity there from
30K ballots need to be recounted.
In the meantime, live now look there at the White House. We are waiting on some of these results here in parts of Indiana and Kentucky. And of course, we are tracking the electoral college count. We have this there at the lower left-hand of your screen. We'll be popping that up once the races get called in certain states. Of course, has not happened yet, but that's going to be a key feature throughout the course of this evening here. In the meantime, though, we do want to bring in our first guest to the conversation, and that, of course, is GOP strategist and operative Keith Nahigian. He joins me. Keith, thanks for being with us here. Let's talk about what the Trump campaign needs to do to close up some of these gaps here. You know, declaring on who wins tonight or whether or not there is a race called tonight. Do you think the former president, much like he did in 2020, will he prematurely declare victory? Or are Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles telling him not to do that? Is that in the offing, you think?
I don't think they're talking about that from the standpoint of we're not in a COVID election. Last time they were tabulating things with COVID protocols and touching ballots and all these other things. And they had twice as many absentee and early voting ballots. They don't have that now. They have much better machines. I think you're going to see results tonight, and then acceptance speeches even tonight, or recession speeches tonight for the most part. I think we're going to get to a conclusion way quicker than past elections.
All right, of course, live look there at the White House. I have to ask, though, I mean, if he does speak, if Trump does speak tonight, what will his message be if there is no conclusion?
Which way? Oh,
I think
General G, I didn't see that you were in here, buddy.
I don't have enough electoral
I think Asman, I don't know if he voted or not, but if he did, I have a feeling he probably voted for Trump.
In the cycle that they ran together. You just never know. It depends.
That would be my guess.
Still, if there's enough that he can call a victory because he has enough electoral votes, basically, if he wins Georgia and North Carolina,
Alex Herrera, Kamala Harris, hey. Yeah, I hope it turns out good for you guys too.
win Pennsylvania.
El Pescador, Ted Gennaro, the hard name, Ted Gennaro.
It's going to be a much longer night waiting for other states and other time zones to close.
Yeah, good luck to everybody.
So, Keith, though, should the Trump camp be worried about the Latino vote in Pennsylvania, particularly the Puerto Rican American diaspora here? The Harris campaign has gone really hard with that constituency over the last week in the wake of those comments that joke made at the rally at Madison Square Garden.
Not
should
that
they be
many,
worried?
right?
And
I
if
mean,
so,
I don't
are
know.
they?
Yeah, Adam, that's
I
some
don't think
crazy
they're
stuff.
even thinking about it for a minute. It's a joke of a person that said something 5 days early. If that's what things are moving the electorate is about the economy, the immigration issue.
Nobody gives
Puerto
yeah.
Ricans are very upset about, illegal immigration in their communities. There's other big issues that are impacting people at the kitchen counter every day, and I think that's the number one priority for them. So there's 500,000 Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania.
That's a
I
lot.
think they're going to
Damn.
vote on what issues really matter to them most.
All right, Keith, I do want to bring in my colleague here, Austin Westfall, with a few questions for you as well. From the Trump side of the equation, we do have his election night watch party shot there in West Palm Beach, Austin.
We saw in the past week, Trump visited New Mexico and Virginia, Keith. We saw
Dude, I can't believe Kamala didn't visit New Mexico.
What
Why
does
not?
the Trump campaign see in
Like,
those
why wouldn't she
states, those
come here and like
typical
secure some of those
battlegrounds that we've been
votes?
focusing on?
Like, I would have
I've
gone
been
and
saying, I've been
watched
talking about
Kamala.
New Hampshire for the last year. When Biden canceled the primary up there, it was very devastating to the process.
I wish I would have known Trump was coming. I may have tried to go up there, but
presidents and getting the no candidates. And when he canceled the primary,
Albuquerque's a crazy
it was
place.
devastating for the economy up there. And then he also instructed his cabinet not to travel up there for nearly 2 years. So in terms of Harris, she has never really been there. Remember, she dropped out before the Iowa primaries. And then this time as vice president, I think she's only been there, a handful of times.
Does he have the actual Fox News on
They really
YouTube?
like to know who they're voting for up there. And I think there's a disconnect. I think these pollsters are missing the Democrats that are maybe not going to vote because they don't know the candidate well enough. She had a huge disadvantage of only having a couple of weeks worth of campaigning. In New Hampshire, they take things seriously. I can't imagine them going into the polls and voting.
Where's Biden? I wonder where Biden's at tonight.
Because they didn't have the chance.
Probably asleep.
New Hampshire, Virginia.
It is 4:20.
I think he went to Salem also because that media market hits.
Where's Joe?
North Carolina.
Grandma's asleep.
There's a lot of polling that shows it's within a couple of points. And
My grandma's asleep. Joe Biden's
Virginia.
asleep.
And New Mexico, that was a little bit more of a stretch. I'm not sure why he was going.
Although
to
I've been getting her to stay up a little later recently.
Different polls have it.
Or not me, but a few of us have.
Ways of getting to 270. Harris is having a smaller and smaller lane in terms of.
She
how
slept
to get
super
to
good last night.
270,
I was like,
especially if she loses.
that was a +1 in my book today, boys.
Republicans right now and those inside the Trump camp, are they too bullish on some of these early voting
you
numbers
shouldn't have.
we've seen
It was
that
a
have
bad
trended
idea.
and have favored Republicans in states like Nevada and elsewhere here? When you compare that, which we don't know yet, with the same day voting numbers, should they keep their powder dry with that or not?
I think the number to watch is not early voting, but registrations. The registration numbers in these states have moved 8 to 9%. Registration changes are real new voters that are going to be in their column. And if you're talking about 9% in Georgia, in North Carolina, and some of these other places, 6 to 9%, those are new voters registering as Republicans. And a lot of those, that's the bigger number. So it's not it's not early vote, it's the registration changes that are the most dramatic.
Yeah.
All right, Keith Nahigian, we do appreciate your expertise for coming on tonight. I know it's a busy night. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
All right, in the meantime here, like I said, we're just getting started. We're going to be bringing on experts, analysts, surrogates for the campaigns themselves to help us make sense of some of these results that we're getting
French
in.
Bulldogs.
Some of these themes and storylines we'll be tracking throughout the course of the evening here. We'll see you in 2 minutes.
Give me a second. Go look at this other fucking shit. What is it? How much more time do we got? We got almost 30 minutes. God damn.
I do think we should pop up some of the Indiana Kentucky results.
Bro. Did he just say, I think we should...
And accurately, 17% say not confident, but a majority, by far, 81%, say they feel good about the elections there. Blaine Alexander is live for us. You see her there. Blaine, give us a gut check on where things stand.
It's rigged.
Well, where things stand is right now I'm standing in the
I think we need to rig the election. That's what he said.
Polls closing here in Georgia in about 40 minutes.
That's
Once
messed
that
up.
happens,
That's
the
crazy.
activity here is going to start to pick up. Let me show you a little bit of what's happening over my shoulder. Right back there, those machines, that's where we are going to see the tabulations for the votes as they come in here to Fulton County, Georgia's most populous county. Of course, Hallie, you know it very well. We've talked about it plenty of times. It was kind of ground zero for all of those many claims during 2020. I think what's interesting, Hallie, about this location,
Donald.
this building didn't exist back in 2020. This is something that
Golly,
was built
Indiana.
new since the election last time. It's kind of a way to get all of the operations here under one roof, a
They're
way to
rigging it?
streamline this process here in Fulton County. It's also a place that allows
Too
members of the
big to
public
rig.
to come in and observe this process. We've already seen some people who are coming in to watch this tabulation from both parties,
Oh my
Republicans
God.
and Democrats, kind of here amongst the general population with us members of the media. So that's what's happening here. Now, just for a big picture of what's kind of happening around the state, you know,
You think it'll
about
be a
those
few
record
days
voting
until all the
numbers.
votes are through?
4 million people
You know,
cast a ballot.
I have a
That
feeling
led
like
to
we'll
very
have
short
a pretty good
lines today.
idea
Now, I
of
gotta say that
who's
between
supposed to
me
win
and my
tonight.
amazing
But
producer,
who
Charlie
knows?
Brown,
Yeah, it could
we
go
went
a couple
around to about
days, but
15 or so different polling
I
locations
feel like
throughout a
our
couple of
communications are
cities.
pretty
We saw
pretty
almost
good
no
nowadays.
lines.
So
Some people, they
hopefully
told
we
me
can get it
that
done.
most of them said that their wait was as short as
Good to
about
see you,
5
Blue Dog.
minutes or so. Some people in the 15-minute range earlier in the
Yeah,
morning.
what do you mean?
But that really kind of gives you a sense that,
Who's that?
early voting and those absentee ballots, those
Hunter
are the
Biden, you
results
mean?
that are going
Oh,
to
yeah.
have to be tabulated starting around 8 o'clock because that's an
Good
hour
bait.
after polls close. That's state
Poly
law.
market
So
going up.
because the bulk of
Let me
those
see.
votes were cast early, that's where we're going to start to see a lot of those results come in relatively quickly.
As you're talking with voters who've been in line,
60.9,
voters who've
it
been
went
out there
down.
living and working in Georgia, of course, over the course of not just today, but over the course of the last couple of weeks, what stands out to you?
I think a couple of things. One,
Fell
I think
off?
the increased
Ooh, true.
focus on Metro Atlanta, I should say. Metro Atlanta for both
Trump said he's
candidates
gonna pardon
is
Hunter
very
Biden.
different
I'll
from
put
what we
these
saw in
over
the
here.
closing days of 2020.
I can't wait
Back in
for Hunter
2020,
Biden to
Donald
run for
Trump was
president.
going to the reliably red counties, kind of on the southern part, the northern part
That's
of the
gonna be
state.
funny, bro. I'm
This
gonna vote for
time,
him.
Everybody has been focused to
Hunter Biden.
Yeah, I'm gonna
for the
vote for
most
him,
part
100%.
on Fulton County,
It's not a
or
question.
rather on the Metro Atlanta area. That really is where both of them are relying on the vote share to come in.
Yeah,
and
crack
take them
down on
across the
crime.
finish line, Hallie.
Blaine Alexander live for us there in Battleground, Georgia. Blaine, thank you. Let me take you back to Milwaukee now, where Shaq, I think we fixed your microphone, right? So finish your sentence, please, on the latest of what's happening there.
Yes. Yes, bottom line, downtown, those ballots are going to be recounted. Nothing nefarious happening, but because of an agreement between Republicans and Democrats, they just want to make sure that there's some transparency there. So they're recounting those ballots. That might mean a later night here in Milwaukee. But outside of that, everything has been going smooth. I want you to take a look inside this polling location. I'll tell you here at this location, the clerk says that the line this morning stretched out of the door, that it went an hour long or so. And they actually have a small college in the area. So they said that they've been having a lot of people take advantage of Wisconsin's same-day registration and go into that table that you were just looking at and actually register in person on this election day. I'll tell you my favorite story, Hallie, is that someone said he was undecided up to the moment that he walked up to this polling location, which is essentially a field house here in Milwaukee in a park. He said he didn't know who he was going to decide on, so he took 2 laps around the park and hit a long walk and finally decided he would be backing, in this case, Vice President Kamala Harris. But you mentioned Milwaukee is a place that we're going to be watching incredibly closely.
Yeah.
It's one that has been the focus for Democrats. Saw a lot of big visits ahead of Election Day. It's one that
fake?
is very important
He
to them.
picked
So
him
we're
up.
going to be watching
Oh,
these results
shit.
very closely. Unfortunately, those results might take a little bit longer to come.
Dude, Trace
and to
Space,
be produced,
you're absolutely
because
right,
of
dude. That
little
would
snafu
suck.
downtown.
Shaq Brewster.
It's already a
talking
pain in
with
the
maybe
enough in the neck
latest
if you want to like read
decider,
everything.
in the polling place where you are now. Shaq, thank you very much. Appreciate that. We are just about now 35 minutes away from polls closing in Battleground, Georgia. Not too long from now, you can see the other states where polls close at 7 p.m. Georgia is the one to watch. You've also got 7:30 poll closings in North Carolina. Ohio is interesting as well. There's a key Senate race there, and you can see the swing states that you need to be circling on your map at home, and I'm sure you have one, as our special coverage here of Decision 2024 continues tonight. Savannah Guthrie and Lester Holt will pick up right after a break. They are going to take you all the way to 2 a.m. Eastern and potentially beyond. I'll be there too with exit poll data, joined by Chuck Todd, Kristen Welker, and Tom Yamas. See you in a minute.
That's good. Crashed it? Yeah, wow. Let's see what this is. I'll pause this real quick. We go to this one.
Jennifer McCormick at 39% right now. Braun with a pretty sizable margin over McCormick. It's still early, though. But interesting, this opened up a seat kind of in the Senate for Republicans in Indiana.
Great space. Welcome back, dude. Good to see you chatting it up.
Tried his hand at Senate politics, and it's seemingly going well for him tonight as well. Austin.
Yeah.
And again, I'm pulling up Allen County behind me here. This is where Fort Wayne is, Andrew.
Oh, be
just to illustrate some of what we're seeing in these bigger counties. So far,
this time change, man, kills dogs.
36,000 for Braun.
I think it's like time to eat way too early.
But that's only 5% of the votes tallied so far. There's not
dude, we should get rid of the time change for the dogs.
So
washed
out.
out.
Pets, dude.
In fact, the only competitive one that we expect, 2%? And by the way, I should introduce
what a
our
fucking
map
idiot.
Of all the governor's races around the country.
God damn.
We are, of course, following North Carolina closely. That's an interesting one with Mark Robinson. We do want to bring you results as soon as polls close in North Carolina. That'll be an interesting one to watch for. The real only competitive governorship that's happening this cycle is going to be in New Hampshire. We're going to be following those results closely. That red that you see in Indiana behind me, not a shocker.
All right, Austin, thanks so much. In the meantime here, we are anticipating some type of press conference there out of Philadelphia. We don't know entirely when that's going to begin, but I want to tell you why this is happening. This is what precipitated it earlier this afternoon. Donald Trump there posting on Truth Social, saying a lot of talk about massive cheating in Philadelphia.
Ouch.
He says law enforcement coming. Now, Philadelphia election officials and the district attorney in Philly, Larry Krasner, are weighing in on this. Krasner says this: my response to Trump's unfounded allegation of cheating in Philly's general election. He says the only talk about massive cheating has come from one of the candidates, Donald J. Trump. He says there's no factual basis whatsoever within law enforcement to support this wild allegation from Krasner. Going on to say, we have invited complaints and allegations of improprieties all day. If Donald J. Trump has any facts to support his wild allegations, we want them now, right now. We are not holding our breath here. So, wanted to just make sure we got that in. We are waiting
this guy's like,
for this
shut
press
up.
conference to begin there in Philly. In the meantime here, let's bring to the conversation yet another one of these guests, experts, analysts
Do we believe
who will
someone's
be
trying to steal the
joining
election?
us throughout the course of the evening to help us make sense of some of these storylines. Our friend, though, as well, former Biden campaign advisor,
I'm just fucking around.
and that's Rhett Buttle. He joins me. Rhett, I wanted to ask, too, and thanks for being with us. Happy election night. Rhett, just your response and reaction to what we just brought our viewers happening in Philadelphia here. Do you think that's somewhat of a bellwether of how the night's going to go as far as rhetoric, as far as messaging?
Well, I hope so. But I think, we are expecting that, President Trump will, as he has always done, put out potentially incorrect things that are happening.
That's right.
But at this stage of the game, it's really important to know that this has been a very safe and accessible election. Everyone's votes have been very secure. America has the most safe and secure election system in the world. We saw that last cycle. And, in previous cycles where the Trump administration had brought forward, allegations of fraud, all of
people
those,
think
the
he's
vast majority
lying.
of them were struck down by independent judges. So, we may continue to see some of this rhetoric. I don't think that it's helpful right now. We need to make sure that as polls are open, people continue to get to the polls. The most important thing is that people be able to know that their vote is safe and secure and it's accessible to everyone.
So, Red, I want to talk about the Harris campaign and where the Harris campaign stands right now. Last night on CNN, a senior Harris campaign advisor, David Plouffe, said this to Aaron Burnett, that he believes they can win all 7 battlegrounds. He says they can, not that they will. He believes that, though. Is that feasible right now? Why is this race so close between Harris and Trump?
They're always close.
Look, we always knew that this would be a close election. That has been heavily predicted. The polls have been very close. But the vice president has said over and over she is asking for every American's vote, and she's leaving no stone unturned. Yesterday, she was, crossing across Pennsylvania from the top of the bottom of the state, talking to voters about her plan to lower cost and what she'll do as president of the United States to bring, down the cost of groceries, to make the cost of housing more affordable. And I think that is a message that is really resonating, not just in Pennsylvania, but in places like Nevada and Wisconsin. And so, I think the campaign is really focused on bringing the message to working families about how they're going to make their lives better. And I think that that's why you heard David Plouffe talk about last night. All of these states are within the realm of possible.
So I want to talk also, though, about this narrative that has been front and center throughout the course of the campaign cycle. How Harris has had to redefine herself, especially in relation to President Joe Biden. Joe Biden withdrew from the ticket in July, and Harris allegedly, you can argue, charted her own course or did not chart her own course. Do you see any Biden drag in some of these early exit polls right now? That has been a key feature, how she would distinguish herself from Biden. We know this race is going to be decided among independents and among some of these late-breaking undecided voters. Has she done a good enough job of distinguishing herself from Biden?
I think she has.
Well, look, I think the vice president is very proud of the things that she accomplished as part of the Biden-Harris administration, which are mostly bipartisan things, the bipartisan infrastructure law, the bipartisan Chips and Sciences Act.
You think
all
not
of
so
those
much?
are investments in Americans, working families, things like roads and bridges that create jobs. But the vice president has also really talked about what is important to her, right? And so she's put plans together focused on working families and small businesses. She's made access to capital and tax credits for small employers and Main Street the hallmark of her campaign. She's focused on bringing down the cost of housing and groceries for families. Those are things that are plans and that are really unique to the vice president, I think are really identifying. And I also just think, she's been very focused on building a broad coalition. So in addition to really working to, talk to the African-American community, the youth vote community, we're really encouraged by the numbers we're seeing out of Pennsylvania with the Puerto Rican community, for example, and young voters, on college campus coming out to support the vice president. I think all of that is a really unique sign to the strength of the coalition that the vice president brings to this conversation.
So, Red, I got to ask also, because issues are front and center in this campaign, including reproductive rights and abortion here. Is the Dobbs decision from 2 years ago, is that fading or is that ramping up amongst the base of the Democratic Party here? Will we see any effect, especially amongst this key voting demographic, that's suburban women and young women here? It seems like the Harris campaign has put a lot of their eggs into that voting constituency here. Will it matter?
Look, Dobbs is very important, and a woman's right to choose is a key part of this campaign. The vice president has been clear, but there's a broader narrative here, right? This is about freedom. Do you want a candidate that supports freedom? If so, you want to support Kamala Harris. Do you want a candidate that will take us forward and continue to grow the economy? If so, you want Kamala Harris. Do you want a candidate who's more focused on bringing the country together, reaching across the aisle with people like Liz?
Adam, I'm sorry, I was texting.
What was fucking musty orange bitch?
Trump has offered his tax.
He doesn't care. That's why. What does he not care about?
Who run really large
that
businesses.
Fat retard.
A lot of divisiveness, and I think a lot of folks.
You don't want him.
Women, but also include many constituencies, right? We talk to everyone. Are tired of division.
Oh, yeah.
They want to feel joy.
Dude, it's crazy how far behind
America, and I think
the stream YouTube is. I wonder what's going on.
But just lastly, what else are you watching for tonight? You have such a pulse on all of this. I'm sure you're watching a lot of metrics.
Turn the dumbass off.
Early on in the night, we're going to see Kamala Harris doing quite well and Democrats doing right well. The reality is we will see some of the southern states be called early, and those are states that generally will be favorable to Donald Trump.
Big surprise.
But I think it is likely that we probably won't know the complete results of the election tonight. We'll have a better idea, I think, early in the morning around 5 or 6.
Oh, never mind, because I answered that question pretty quick.
Headed. We have to remember that, until all the ballots are in, Pennsylvania can't start counting. And then there's several days where they can do this thing called curing of the ballot. Nevada also has rules where ballots can, still come in if they're marked by mail for 4 or 5 days. So I think, what we'll see is a strong night for the vice president in the beginning. Maybe we'll start to see some, tipping over to the Republican side. But I really think over the next few days, you'll see the vice president, as all of the ballots are coming in, begin to take the lead in states out across the West.
All right, Rhett Buttle, I can't thank you enough. You've been really instrumental this campaign cycle. We'll talk soon.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Have a great night.
Thank you. All right, in the meantime here, we do want to take just another quick commercial break. The results will keep coming in. We brought you some out of Kentucky and Indiana especially. We'll be bringing in my colleague here, Austin Westphal, in the Live Now newsroom, and some more experts and analysts to help us make...
We gotta have another fucking expert out here.
So they can try to get through those lines a little bit more quickly. One thing they feel good about. Another thing that they're feeling particularly good about tonight are the favorability numbers right now. Savannah and Lester. The numbers, according to early exit polls, show that Kamala Harris is at 48% in terms of her favorability. Compare that to 44% for former President Trump, but notably Joe Biden, the current president, is at 41%. That means that Kamala Harris is outperforming the man along whom she ran in 2020, with whom she served for the last 4 years. There had been some real concerns that could have been an albatross for her, given so many Americans had indicated they thought the country was going in the wrong direction. Things we'll be watching over the course of this evening.
All right, Peter Alexander, thank you. And Garrett Haake is at Trump headquarters in West Palm Beach, Florida. Garrett, the former president has been posting on social media today.
He has.
Already talking about widespread cheating. What is he saying?
That's right.
That's right, Lester. And his posts running contrary to the campaign's spin, their official statements at the moment right now. Listen, they came here tonight expecting to throw a party. I'm on the floor of the Palm Beach Convention Center.
I bet they did.
Absolutely massive ballroom that they have booked out, ready to throw a huge victory party, something that didn't really happen in 2016, a race that's victory surprised even Donald Trump.
Albatross?
Didn't happen in 2020 when
I'm not
they
sure
lost.
either.
I
Trace
just got off
space.
the phone with a senior Trump campaign advisor who told me they are cautiously confident in what they've been seeing across the battleground states so far today, and that the former president is trying to run through the tape, making calls to radio stations in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, urging his supporters to go vote,
he's
stay in
hustling.
line if they're already there, and trying to focus on
he's
an
going down
economic
a lot.
message, something that they've always felt is better for them on the,
Donald
sort of
at
the broad spectrum of
60%.
issues in this race. All of that said, the former president's social media posts seem to undermine the confidence he is projecting. Just a short time ago, posting without any particular evidence that we can find about massive cheating, in his words, in Detroit and Philadelphia. Obviously places where Democratic turnout is expected to be very high. And ironically, places, at least in the case of Detroit, where he actually performed better in 2020 in a loss than he did in 2016 in a win. Trump has said for the duration of this campaign, and especially in its closing days, that he believes the only way he could lose is if there is some kind of cheating out across these battleground states. We'll be watching to see what else he has to say about it tonight.
That's right.
Lester?
Okay, Garrett, thank you. We're going to go to battleground Pennsylvania now. NBC's Jacob Soboroff is in Philadelphia, where they've actually added 2 extra voting machines at one polling station because
the
of
voting
the huge
machines
crowds.
were provided by the Kamala Harris campaign.
Yeah, Lester, good evening to you. That's absolutely right. We have been here all day long. We've been watching the line at Temple University. As a matter of fact, it used to stretch all the way down to the next avenue over here. Now the line, which was about 2.5 hours long, is quickly moving inside ahead of the 8 o'clock poll closing time here at Temple University. This is one of 1,703 different election divisions all across the city of Philadelphia. That's the same jurisdiction as the county of Philadelphia, 700 polling places. About 500,000 people were expected to vote in person today. Some of those students who had been waiting 2.5 hours are quickly inside right now. As you can see, they're coming out at a pace that we haven't seen all day. After they added those 2 machines you referenced, it is, as you said, a positive sign for the Harris campaign. But of course, until all the ballots are cast and counted, we won't know that for sure, Lester.
All right, Jacob, thanks.
All right, well, we're right over here at the big board, 270. We mentioned it is the magic number tonight. That is what it will take to win the White House. Each campaign says they have multiple paths to get to that magic number. So let's get back to Tom Yamas at the big board, because this is the big picture. Here's the map. The gray areas are the battleground states, and there are various ways to get to that magic number of 270.
And this is how we ended up at the end of election week in 2020. As you mentioned, those battleground states, we haven't colored them in yet. Biden, he won 6 of those 7 battleground states. So the easiest path for the vice president is to hold the blue wall. Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. If she does that, Savannah, she gets to 270, she's going to the White House. But if she's having a terrible night tonight, and there's an emergency, she doesn't win Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania, the blue wall collapses, she has an emergency route through the Sun Belt. If she can win Nevada, win Arizona, remember, Biden won those, keep Georgia, and flip North Carolina, she gets to 275. But if this is the path for the Democrats, they're going to have a few heart attacks.
Well, I was going to say that's a much tougher path, and polls bear that out. Let's talk about the Donald Trump path.
Okay, just think about the east side. This is the easiest way to understand Trump's path. If he flips Georgia back to red, holds North Carolina, and then turns Pennsylvania red, he's going to the White House again. But if he can't win Pennsylvania, he has to win somewhere else in the Midwest. Donald Trump tonight cannot get to the White House unless he makes a crack in the blue wall. If he wins Michigan, he holds North Carolina, he flips Georgia. He can do it with just Nevada and those 6 electoral votes. But if he can't win Michigan and the blue wall comes down to Wisconsin, he has to win down in Arizona to get those 11 electoral votes.
And that's what we're going to be doing tonight, counting up electoral votes.
Maybe
Maybe next week. We shall see. Lester, let's go over to you.
You two are terribly optimistic. Fantastic. Thank you. Let's bring in Kristen Welker now, moderator of Meet the Press. And Kristen, what are you looking for tonight? Some early indications that suggest one or more of those paths we just talked about are real.
No.
Absolutely, Lester. I'm looking for a couple of things. First of all, let's talk about the historic gender gap that could be one of the big stories of this election. We've seen it in polling leading up to tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris has a significant lead with women voters. Former President Donald Trump has a real lead with male voters. So we'll be watching those early returns to see how that bears out, to see how the split actually falls. Abortion on the ballot in 10 different states. So that will be notable, could potentially drive up turnout. Early bellwethers, Lester. Virginia in particular, there's a key race for Congress there. Virginia 7, Eugene Vindman running against Derek Anderson. This was a Democratic-held seat. Do Democrats continue to hold on to this seat, or do they lose it to Republicans? If they lose to Republicans, that could spell trouble for Democrats early on in the evening. And then this is a really fascinating one, Lester. Split ticket voters. In 1988, you had 17 states that voted opposite parties for president and Senate. In 2020, down to one state, Maine. What do we see tonight? It's really been dwindling over the years.
What does that mean?
All right. Thank you, Kristen. Let's go over to Savannah now.
Poll closings are about to start at 7 o'clock Eastern time, including in the battleground of Georgia. And if you've ever wondered how we're able to call some of these races so
15
quickly,
minutes, guys.
Stay put. We're going to take you inside. We'll show you how we do it right after the
They know the fix is in, boys. That's the reason. Yep. Yeah, because they know it's rigged. Exactly. Yeah, make it too big to rig. I don't know. We'll see what happens. As I said, I've said before, I think Trump's going to win this, but, you know, maybe not. I just got here. Who's winning? Nobody knows. Nobody has any idea. People are still most confident about Trump winning, though. Like, if I look at this, Trump going down by a lot, people trying to vote for it. He's at 58% even now. He went down by 4%, though, because he was at 62 whenever we started a few hours ago. Uh-oh. It's over? Uh-oh. We'll see what happens. Gabor is betting big on orange. That's right. God help us, we need Trump to win. The fix is in for Kamala. They're rigging Poly Market. People crashing out. Stop the steal. The machine has spoken. XQC making bank? Yep, true. PA called early for Harris. We'll see what happens. Save me, Donald Trump. I'm sure he's going to save you, bro. Yep. I'll turn this down a little bit.
See, when he says cheating, it means indefinitely. Lots of love going around in Philly. That's why it's a swing state. My joke was so bad he left. Oh my god.
And whether they lean Dem, lean Republican.
What is? Oh my god, dude, that's hilarious.
About trying to snag.
Sorry, I just saw the chat.
Because clearly Harris has her followers and Trump has his followers.
They do.
And so now you're really playing on the margins here. And it's a matter of people who just couldn't get behind Kamala Harris, who are down.
Guys, join the Discord.
Vote for Trump or
Join the Discord. You can come hang out with me in the round table, dude. And raise your hand and talk on stream if you'd like.
Those independents may very well decide this tonight.
Brian, I wanted to ask you, and this is somewhat of a long-winded question, or maybe the answer will be long-winded. Let's talk about the campaigns themselves. In the last week, or maybe the last weekend, in your view, what did the Trump campaign do right, and what did the Harris campaign do right, and vice versa? What do you think they did wrong?
Well, I think both campaigns really grounded out to the end. They were in a lot of places. They kept hitting these high swing state states to try to secure votes there. I think Donald Trump actually remained somewhat disciplined down the stretch. and Kamala Harris stuck to her message points. I think those are the positives. The negatives are that if you're not a Trump fan or you're not a Harris fan, nothing they said in the last few days will change your mind.
No, I don't
Harris
think so.
didn't really get into specifics through the entire 107 days of her campaign. Donald Trump kept with the same themes that he has talked about: the economy, immigration, these other things, right through to the end. So in the last 7 days, I was waiting for something to kind of move the needle here a little bit. I didn't really see that.
It is very close, Austin.
Yeah, so Brian, we saw, and I was asking Keith about this earlier, we saw Trump making appearances in New Mexico and in Virginia. We saw Vance in New Hampshire over the weekend. We haven't seen Kamala Harris making any appearances in any of these states that we don't consider battleground states. What do you think they're seeing? What do you think they're relying
She
on?
thought it was,
Okay,
yeah,
I'm sorry,
bro.
I don't mean to cut everyone off here or interrupt. We're going to be doing this a lot. We do have some of these live events right now. We have some of these election officials, especially in Georgia. The Secretary of State there, Brad Raffensperger, speaking live. Let's just take it.
Was there. They brought in dogs and they were doing a sweep there, so we're not concerned about anything like that. The area was fully secure.
Do you have a sense of how long the delays were?
Typically, what you saw, anywhere from
it's
20
like that
minutes
bomb
to
threat
40
bullshit.
minutes in that range. And so, we'll just be following that precinct by precinct.
Yep.
How much later will they stay open?
Well, that's as we were just saying. If you had, they were doing their work,
So
say
didn't you
20
fucking
minutes
listen?
to 40 minutes, something like that. I think there's one that might be 50 minutes, but in that range, so less than an hour. But we'll get those to you as soon as we can.
You said dogs were there and that they sniffed the areas. Is that the case for all 12 of those locations where?
And typically, I know that in Atlanta, they also just got a whole bunch of bomb threats come through, and Atlanta Police Department, they're keeping everything open. All the precincts are staying open, and they're just sending dogs around to sweep it to make sure that they're safe. But we know where it's coming from. FBI knows where it's coming from, but we want to make sure, interest of public safety, that everyone, make sure that it doesn't, slow down anyone from voting. And like I said, if you are in line at 7 p.m., you can continue to stay in line until you exercise your right to vote.
Do these seem to be coming from the same source as the earlier threats? And are they connected, do you know, to threats coming in and to other states?
We don't know that. And best
They have
we
no
can
idea.
tell,
Yeah, how can they possibly know that?
Same source.
Are there any indications of threats coming into places where the ballots are being counted?
No.
How will the how will the extension of the hours impact the counting of the votes coming in to you guys?
Just a little bit slower because you have, I think that was 15 precincts plus the 2 in Cobb. It's a total of 15 precincts, so it just extends it out for there. But all those early votes have already been, all the early voting has already been done. There's no reason for that should not be tabulated and, uploaded quickly. And then all the other votes for the absentee that have been accepted, so that should come quickly also.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have any frustration seeing some of these threats come in after you guys have done so much?
Well, it's fucking
over the last
annoying, I'm
4
sure,
years,
yeah.
To try to change the election process and make it more secure?
I'm frustrated as an American that people would threaten other Americans.
Because they're stupid.
Or threaten, just to question the safety. And so that's what frustrates me. But we work through it. But, our heart goes out for our voters. And that's what our concern is, and our poll workers.
You said early results will be in by 8 p.m., but that's a huge chunk of the total votes. So
Correct.
we're going to see early results in Georgia, 4 million votes by 8 p.m.?
Oh, some of the precincts may be extended a little bit now because, they have, this situation going on. But that's in 4 counties, 5 counties. So really then over 150 counties, yes, by 8 p.m. by state law. They are required, when they close on time, to have it 1 hour after they close. So yes, you'll get a lot of results really quick. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. We'll be here. I know you will be too.
All right, so Brad Raffensperger wrapping up there. You see his deputy, Gabe Sterling, there in Atlanta with all of these questions about when we might know results there in Georgia. Polls closed at the top of the next hour here. I'm Andrew Kraft, back out live. I want to just put this tweet up here. This is a really good illustration what election officials have had to contend with today. Anna Giratelli at the Washington
7
Examiner.
new bomb threats. That's the way, hey, guys. If you're losing, you just call in a bomb threat. Wow.
But there's still a good chance the trailing team can catch up in the next half.
Oh.
But if a team is up by 20 points with only 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, there's just not enough time to close the gap. That's how it is with the outstanding vote count.
We're trying to figure out, are there enough votes for the second place candidate to overtake the first place candidate? And sometimes it's mathematically impossible.
Lipinski and his team will also know where that outstanding vote is coming from. Is it from a very blue area or a red area, which adds to their formula? And if a race is really close, that could take days.
Yeah,
you really need all of the vote in to be able to make a call.
That's too big to rig.
Absolutely certain of who the winner will be.
And the mantra of our decision desk is that they want to be right. They do not want to be first. And Savannah and Lester have had a lot of time to spend with the decision desk.
Yeah, notice a lot of people
and
watching
for
today.
Election night, I can tell you, they take their
That's
job
an ass
so
load of
seriously.
people.
They're mathematicicians, they're scientists, they're journalists.
I mean, we got
Thank God
7
they do the
minutes
math.
until
They
this
don't have
shit
to do
starts
it.
sitting.
And they're getting so much
starts getting
information
calculated
from around the country.
Yeah.
Sometimes the information is
There's
changing
a lot of you
within
guys
a
here.
second.
What's up,
It's
boys?
incredible. But
How y'all
again,
doing?
they want to make sure they're
Make
right.
sure to
before they
follow
give
the stream.
information
By
out.
the way, they're siloed off. They're not even here in New
We
York.
do
They're in
this every day.
Philadelphia, so they are doing their work, and they tell us when they're
Unless
ready to
we're
make the call,
banned.
not
And
the other way around.
we are about to see some of their work in action. We're coming up, and the first poll is about to close. Our decision desk is standing by to make its first projections of the evening as we begin to answer
here
the
we go.
question. Who will be the next
Popular
president of the United
vote.
States? Stay with us.
61% Donald.
NBC.
Damn, look at that.
Ooh.
The cool building.
Is this like their last
Yeah.
commercial break until they really start popping off?
I think it was the Empire State Building, if I'm not wrong.
Ooh, they only got a 2-minute one too. Let's see. I'll pause this. I'll put this one back on.
All right, yeah. And of course, got a reminder, we're not in a pandemic like we were in 2020. That's a major difference and mitigating factor as well. Brian Sobel, thanks so much. Also, we'll check in at the top of the hour. In the meantime, let's take our final commercial break of this hour. We got a lot more in store. Many states' polls are closing in just about 7 minutes' time. And some of those battleground states we're watching, including Georgia and North Carolina. We'll see you in 2 minutes.
We about to get that fucking information. I'm ready, bro. Like, this is going to be wild. The funny thing is, like, no matter what happens, everybody is going to lose their fucking mind.
True. Right back, guys. I'm going to go feed the dogs.
Yeah, if Trump wins, people are going to be like, bro, like Handmaid's Tale. If Kamala wins, it's going to be rigged again. It's going to be crazy, yeah. I don't think this one is going to be as crazy as the last one. To be honest, it probably is not. Like, the last one was, what the fuck? But this one's still going to be, it's going to be a lot to it, for sure. It's all, guys, it's only rigged if the person that you like loses.
More Americans turn to NBC News than any other news organization.
All right, we're back at 6:55 in the East. We are just minutes away from the first poll closings of the night.
And that also means we are minutes away from our first calls of the night, including one of the biggest battlegrounds of all. At the top of the hour, the first polls close. Our decision desk able to make its first calls of the night.
6 states and 60 delegates up for grabs, including one of the biggest battleground prizes in the South, Georgia.
The polls showing a race down to the wire, the state key to former President Trump's strategy for victory.
We are going to win the state of Georgia.
And if Vice President Harris wins it,
The path to the White House runs right through this state.
she opens up another path to the 270 electoral college votes needed to take the White House.
We are standing by for the first vote count and new exit poll information from this critical battleground as our decision desk gets ready to make the first calls on the road to 270. So let's get to it. Who's ready to count some votes? Blaine Alexander is in Union City, Georgia for us tonight. Polls just about to close in that
new
battleground.
Elon tweet.
Hi, Blaine. What do you see?
Well, Savannah, really, this is the nerve center for Fulton County elections. This is the elections hub. I can give you a quick look inside.
He posts
right
dark
over my
MAGA
shoulder.
assemble.
This is where we're going to see the tabulations. And I spoke with a top county official who tells me how this process will unfold through the night. Basically, what happens when the polls close here in Georgia, about 3 minutes from right now, poll managers are going to take the memory cards and they're going to take the paper ballots. They're then going to drive them to one of 7 check-in centers that spread throughout the county. And then all of that information, all of those things are going to come right here. It's going to be an interesting thing. We're going to see each one of those precinct managers walk in escorted by a law enforcement officer to bring those memory cards and the paper ballots, and that's when the tabulation process will begin. Now, of course, the big question is how long is it going to take? Well, we know that Georgia law now requires them to start being uploaded, the early voting ballots and the absentee ballots to be uploaded within an hour of polls closing. So around 8 o'clock, we're going to start to see those results. They'll be shown on a big screen that's not too far away from where I'm standing. And certainly all of this is going to start to come alive once the polls close in about 2 minutes, Savannah.
All right, Blaine, thank you very much.
Now to our panel. Hallie Jackson is our senior Washington correspondent. Kristen Welker is host and moderator of Meet the Press. Hallie, let me start with you. We're about to get our first characterization.
Finally.
What are you thinking?
Listen, Georgia is going to be a critical state here. This is a place that had a very, very close razor-thin margin back in 2020. So what happens in Georgia is going to matter. A couple of things that I'm watching as I'm digging into those exit polls, which we'll get to after the polls close.
I think Trump's going to lose
who's doing
Georgia.
well there. Non-white voters, Black and Latino voters, especially when you're looking at places like Metro Atlanta. We're always looking at young voters, and we are always looking at the gender gap, of course. We know that that is one of the dominant
the headline of the night.
Yeah, exactly. And so we'll see if it continues to be.
All right.
I think a real tell for that is going to be after 8 o'clock when polls close, and we can start to report out more.
Georgia was one of those traditionally red states that Democrats had thought about and dreamed about for many years, and not until 2020 did they finally get it. It was the swingiest state of the 2020 election. Trump won it by 200,000, I think, in 2016, and then Biden barely eked by. So what do you expect tonight?
Well, I think there has been so much focus on African-American voters and Black men in particular. I think about former President Barack Obama, who was out on the campaign trail with that very blunt message for Black male voters. Don't sit on the sidelines. Get out and vote.
The countdown.
So
Let's see it.
See if in a place like Georgia, the Atlanta
election alert.
All right, we are having an election
Turn
alert
them off.
now as we approach the top of the hour, and things
all right, let's get it.
Getting interesting.
All right, who won? Who won?
All right, 7 o'clock in the East,
Oh,
and
let's
we
hear
will
it.
not waste any time. This is the moment where we move from those months of speculations to actual results.
That's right. The polls have just closed in 6 states, and NBC News is ready to make our first projections of the night. Here we go. We start with the state of Kentucky. NBC News projects that Donald Trump will win in Kentucky tonight. Let's move to Vermont. NBC News projects that Vermont will go on the Kamala Harris call-in this evening. This is where it brings us on the road to 270 right now. The early start, Donald Trump out in front with 8 electoral votes, 3 for Harris. A long way to go to get that 270, but that's where we are right now.
Well, polls closed in a handful of states, and these are the ones we haven't called yet: Indiana, South Carolina, Virginia, and that all-important state of Georgia. And here's how
Trump's
we're
winning so
right
far,
now.
guys.
You see this?
Too early to call. It may come tonight, but it's not coming this exact moment. So we will continue to watch. We don't have any results yet to show you out of Georgia. It is simply too early to call. But Georgia is one of the faster states to count. So as I go over to Tom Yamos, who's starting to pull up the big board there. And
Or my wife, a new TikTok I made yesterday.
That we're looking at. See, you've got Kentucky up on your map.
Or this morning.
This is the earliest data we're having so far. We've called Kentucky for former President Trump so far. I'm just trying to get a lay of the land to see, how is it looking compared to 2020. Again, a lot of that vote is still out, but we were able to make the projection as we explained to you. I also want to talk about Indiana because we're getting some vote data here. Still too early to call. Remember, only 14% of that vote is in right now. We also have this great feature on our board where we can show you where the remaining vote is. So obviously, the bigger the bubble is around those counties, that's how many votes are still outstanding. So here in the Indianapolis region, still a ton of votes waiting there. This is a state that Republicans have really done very, very well in elections past.
Damn,
If you go back
Indiana's-
here, Trump in 2020 won
Bro,
by about
he's
16
leveling up.
points. Before that, it was even higher against Hillary Clinton.
Jesus.
This is a state that Republicans are going to be safely in the win column, most likely. One of the places we can start to get data from is
It's
Hamilton
over.
County,
All right.
with 60% of the vote in. This is not a great sign for Trump right now, but again, I want to be very clear. It's only 60% of the vote in.
It's
and
rigged.
this is what I'm talking about. 52% is what he won in 2020.
This is what he's
She's
talking
on
about,
top
how
right
it's
now
rigged.
with about 49, 50% of the vote. There's about 1,300 vote difference right now. Again, still very early, but this is the first data we're getting tonight, so we're kind of parsing what we can so far. There are big areas like South Bend, Pete Buttigieg, who was the mayor there, obviously, where Notre Dame is as well, and the big city of Indianapolis, Evansville. There's a university down there. A lot of the, if we look at the map in 2020, these are mostly rural counties.
Trump
red
came out
counties where
ahead
Trump can
last
really
time.
run up the vote. But again, in some of these smaller counties, he wants to be 60, 70% to make sure he can overcome what she's going to get in Indianapolis. But still very early tonight, Savannah. We're going to get a lot of data as it's coming in, hot and heavy throughout the night. But right now, still very, very early.
This is when we get the tea leaves out. This is the tea leaves portion of the night. And, you know, you have the red state. You know that Indiana's that Trump will prevail most likely. Same thing with Kentucky. But sometimes we can look into those counties and particularly the suburbs, because that is where we're starting to see a trend. Did I read your mind? You're giving me that
Savannah,
look.
we're mind melding because I'm looking at Hamilton County and I'm going, okay, people at home are probably going, wait a second, Hamilton County, was I supposed to know about that one? Was that one of the big ones? Here's why it's so interesting. It's because of the tea leaves, Savannah, and because of the trend lines as well, right? This is a county where Republican margins have been shrinking over time. Democrats have been making inroads. It is a suburban county. It is something similar that we see in places like Georgia, right? In some of these places in Pennsylvania and elsewhere. And that is what's so interesting about Hamilton. Let's not over-index on it. It's early, so that's why we're interested in it, because it's at least some data that's coming into us. But that's part of the story here.
You can see the importance of some of these places by how many times the candidates have visited Donald Trump. 8 trips to Georgia, 7 for Kamala Harris.
That's a lot.
We cover it every night, them in this state and that state, but when you
Yeah,
see
it
it
is,
laid
dude.
out, it's quite amazing.
It really is. And when you think about the state of Georgia, we'll be looking at those Atlanta suburbs. What types of margins do we see there? That's how President Biden wound up eking out a
president
victory.
vote.
And then the exurbs. That's where Donald Trump does well. Forsyth, Cherokee. Can he run up the margins there? If he's going to win the state of Georgia, he'll do it in those territories.
Let's take it a step out, because these are themes that will run throughout the night.
I think this would be
Kamala
better
Harris
so you
has
guys
to
can
get the
see
turnout
these.
up in the cities. She has
Indiana,
to get her
whoa.
margins even higher in the suburbs, and why she has to make up for the rural vote that is expected for Donald Trump. And he has been very good in past elections at finding these voters who aren't traditional voters who come and vote for the first time.
Absolutely. That's where the ground game is so significant. And tonight will be, to some extent, a test not only of their campaigns, but of the ground games. Was the Trump campaign able to get out some of those voters who don't typically go out and vote? One note about Pennsylvania, one of the biggest states we're going to be watching throughout the course of the night. Joe Biden won it, not just by running up the margin.
Guys, it's over.
County, but in the suburbs of Philadelphia, those collar counties that
Associated
make all
Press?
the difference. Hallie and I are both in Pennsylvania.
That's our Bucks County in the House, folks.
Yeah, what do the exit polls tell you?
Okay, so let me disengage myself from the chair here, because we can start to get into some of the vote breaks here in Georgia. And here's what's really interesting. We've talked about people who identify as independents. This is a category, right, of a voter that Vice President Harris really extended an olive branch to. She wanted to win them over. But look at this. Based on our exit poll data, it is Donald Trump winning
Donald at
independents,
19 already?
nearly a double-digit margin over Vice President Harris in the state of Georgia. Here's your great caveat. These are early numbers. They may shift a little bit throughout the night, but this is really interesting here. And if you're wondering, well, how does this compare to 2020? Let me pull that up here, because he is overperforming. Donald Trump is overperforming his numbers with independent voters in Georgia.
Dude, I never realized just how much Asman reacts.
By about 10 points.
He's literally just constant.
Let's look at the gender gap in Georgia. The gender gap. It exists here, folks. We are
Let's
seeing, and I'll pull up this board in a second here, Kamala Harris winning with women, Donald Trump winning with men.
Dude, my monitor's so
Look at that, 55%.
That is something else we'll be watching here throughout the night. She's got to do really well with women. He wants to do really well with men. And in my conversations with
my like above
sources
monitor
just in the
that
last
my
couple of hours,
stream stuff is on, guys, is like has like I need a new one because it like flashes and stuff.
19.
And sometimes I can't see where my mouse is.
And no
So
surprise,
frustrating. frustrating.
Donald Trump will win that state again. Here's the data that's just coming in. See if we can get some numbers. And you now know, because we've taken you inside the decision desk, how is it that we can project this with just 15% of the vote counted? It is because we are confident that the margin is sufficient to make that call. So let's let's go to the 270 map.
Wow.
A lot, and we start to fill in some of the gray. Indiana, red for Donald Trump. Let me go right over to.
No, you need to get down.
Too
big to
You're
read.
welcome.
Florida. So Florida had a
Oh my
poll
gosh, you're
close.
too cute.
Or is it about to poll close?
Yeah, they've closed. We have some voting data.
Okay.
And we have an Osceola County. I wanted to show this, why this is important. So here in Florida, we have the I-4 corridor, right? And this is kind of the central part of the state. It cuts right through here. When you think about Florida, you can think about it in three parts. The Panhandle, it's very red. That's Trump country in a lot of those counties. South Florida, usually reliably Democratic, but Republicans have made some inroads. And it's this I-4 corridor that is really the swing region. It's also the area where you find a large number of Puerto Rican voters as well.
Yeah.
So when we come into Osceola, I wanted to highlight this because we have 71% of the vote in. This is usually a reliably blue county for Democrats. Again, not all of the vote is in.
I will
still
say
early,
Trump
but
is
you can see Harris
overperforming in every
underperforming
category
in what is
compared to
historically a
where he
blue
was
county
at
for
in
Democrats.
2020.
56 for Joe
Have you
Biden
guys
in
noticed
2020. 51 for Harris right now with 71% of the vote in. Again, it's still very early. So how is Trump doing? Well, in a county that he usually does very well in, Volusia County on the East Coast here, 56% in 2020 with 70% of the vote in.
Project
he's now at
2025.
59%. So he's overperforming. Again, still a lot of vote out. Still a lot to do here and kind of see where the vote is going. But those are good signs for the president. Listen, Florida has been trending red. Trump won it in 2016. He won it in 2020. Actually, in 2016, when that political earthquake happened, it really happened once we started calling Florida. 30 electoral votes. The map gets very, very hard for Trump if he doesn't win Florida. Without Florida, his sort of strategy in the blue wall and
He's
everywhere
100% going to win Florida.
He needed this in the win column. Still very early. Right now, statewide, only 18% of the vote is in. We can find out where that remaining vote is tonight. So you can see in the major cities, Tampa, we're still going to find out how that hurricane, both Milton and Helene, affected voters there. Pinellas County, just to the west of that, a big swing county. Orlando, that's a hub for Democrats. Duval County, we actually have some vote in Duval County. I want to take a look at this. This is Governor Ron DeSantis' old district when he was a representative. This has been a swing county. Biden won it, but Trump won it in 2016. She's doing, look, Harris is doing pretty well. In 2020, Biden was at 51. She's now at 50%. 66% of the vote is still out. This is a county that Republicans had hoped to flip. We're going to have to wait and see. But again, that vote's trickling in, but we can start to kind of read those tea leaves, Savannah and Lester, and kind of see where the vote's going. Again, still very early, but this is going to be, this has to be a win for Trump. If not, it's going to be a very long night for Republicans.
And a rapid pace there as well in the county. We're seeing that in some places tonight.
We anticipate, of course, as Tom's just saying, that Florida is a good state for Donald Trump. It is also the first test of Trump's strength. So that is why all of those areas that Tom is just laying out, these are, again, very early data so far, but significant nonetheless, because it will help us, once we get in more, understand how strong he's
Fun
running.
fact alert for those who remember the hanging
Fun
shots.
fact alert. What?
Florida, in the wake of that debacle, has some of the fastest vote counting in the country. So I tell you, you will not be waiting for Florida for very long tonight. They really get that vote counted very, very quickly. They have the modern machines. They're allowed to pre-process the ballots. So you won't have to wait too long for that.
Trump's still ahead on the popular vote.
Are we seeing anything unexpected, though?
So far, I do think the independent numbers are going to be really interesting to watch throughout the course of the night, especially in what we saw in those early national exit polls, that a lot of people were identifying not as Republican, not as Democrat, but as independent. So that's a storyline to watch. I'll tell you another trend as we're talking about Florida. Osceola County has a large Puerto Rican population, the biggest of any county, I believe, in Florida. And this is something that I've heard in my conversations with Democratic campaign officials and those close to the campaign, that they feel like that is a part of the Latino population that they can really try to move the needle with here after those controversial comments from that opener for former President Trump.
Well, actually, let's go over to Tom on that. I should say the polls close at 8 o'clock in Florida, but you do get some information for 7 o'clock poll close timings. I think that's part of the confusion here. But we're talking about this Osceola County. It's a third Puerto Rican. Right. So it's interesting because you have the Latinos down in Miami-Dade. I know. Go ahead and give your shout out. Miami-Dade is the greatest.
Just the greatest county, greatest people. I mean, I could keep going.
But obviously, this is, Latinos come from different backgrounds and have different voting patterns here.
Yeah, it is not monolithic. Just like really every minority group, it is not monolithic. The Puerto Ricans have tended to vote more Democratic. Cuban Americans, Venezuelan Americans have trended lately more towards the Republican side. But I do want to remind you, too, during the Obama years, Obama was able to pull back some of that Cuban American vote. It has changed in recent years. We're getting more data. As you mentioned, Florida's very fast in putting in their data out. So we were talking about Osceola again, their big Puerto Rican population. The same with Orange. This is Orlando. This is a big Democratic stronghold here. Again, 60% in. Look, I don't want to draw too many inferences from this, but you have Biden at 61. Harris is at 58. You could say she's sort of underperforming, but I also want to say it's only 60% in. A bigger number that's coming in that I think is more important, guys, I want to talk about right now is Broward County. This is just north of Miami-Dade. Think about Fort Lauderdale, think about Sunrise, all those areas and those big cities that have been growing over the years, especially post-pandemic. This needs to be a place where Democrats really drive up the vote, right? Hillary Clinton won big here, 66%. Biden did the same at 64.
Oh, shit.
Tonight, Harris is at 60. Again, I always point to this
Trump
number.
going back up on Polymarket?
But if you were to call it right now, she is slightly underperforming. We'll wait for that other vote to come in. Guys, over to you.
Tom, thanks very much. We are just minutes away from polls closing in Ohio and battleground North Carolina. We're standing by to make some new calls in the race for the White House. Stay with us.
All right. All right, let me see. Georgia's blue. Who would have said, who thought that? Who said that? Damn, I thought I was stupid for saying that. Wait, what? Oh, wow. Who knows? It's real close. I mean, it's 51-48. It's 3%? Oh, yeah, but I think he's going to win Georgia. Or sorry, I think she's going to win Georgia. He's going to lose. We'll find out, though. I mean, he's winning right now. I'll tell you that. Yeah, none of these are like massive margins right here, at least. Trump's going back up on Polymarket. Let me see. Oh. They doubted Orange, man. Uh-oh. Wait, Jill Stein hasn't got any votes so far. Damn. So I guess probably that's not going to happen, right? Yeah. I feel like, guys, I feel like it might not happen for her. Yeah. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, bro, he's still tweeting. Jesus. GA is reporting an early vote. It will change. Okay. I already made my prediction. I'm guessing. I could also be a big stupid idiot that's wrong. So I guess we're gonna find out. Yeah, who knows? Yup. True.
We have choice, yeah. Yeah, we do.
Is that Chrome to your default? Shut up, idiot. Yeah. Trump is chat's president. Popular vote Trump. 150 wins 600. I missed your reasoning. Can you explain why you think Trump loses Georgia? I just think it's gonna happen. Yeah. I just think it's gonna happen straight up. Atlanta? Yeah. Was that Pope Francis? Why's he got yellow teeth? Bro, his teeth are more yellow than mine. Can't God do something about that?
Closer to the Gaza border. The story of
He's 70? Oh, really?
take care of yourself.
All right, we got it.
And each other.
Let's see it.
Welcome back. We're going to be taking you to this view and these numbers here as we continue throughout the evening on the road to 270. Donald Trump out to the early lead with 19. Harris with 3. Let's look at a couple of races that have uncalled so far. We will start with Virginia. 13 electoral votes, just a percent in there in Virginia, but you can see Donald Trump at a widespread right now in Georgia. That's, of course, the big first big prize in the among the swing states. Right now,
Georgia.
Donald Trump with 90,000 votes. Kamala Harris, 86,000, but that's too
Dang,
early.
dude, that's crazy.
We have some of our first poll closings. We await Arizona in a couple of hours from now. 11 electoral votes. We've got Gotti Schwartz there in Tempe, home to Arizona State University. Big lines there. A real split that you're seeing, that gender divide, Gotti.
Poll chat. Already did.
Damn, dude, there was a lot of people that voted this year.
Like Trump 70-80%.
Line, that's where the line starts. And let's take a walk, because this line is about 75, 77
The amount of votes, like at 12%, just coming in from Kentucky.
All the way down, and you're seeing so many.
Like, dude, Kentucky is where Wizard of Oz happened.
We've been talking to a lot of the students here, a lot of the female students. They say that
there's nothing in Kentucky.
By the issue of abortion and the issue of how they think Donald Trump treats women. And then you see a lot of males in this line, young guys here at ASU. Many of them wearing those MAGA hats that have been given out along this line from organizers here. And they have been telling us that the reason why they are turning out is because of the economy, because of masculine identity. And they've also said, interestingly enough, people have been talking about the podcast wars here in this line. And
they watched Joe Rogan
podcast, the appearance. We were talking to a couple of guys just a little while ago.
So you need to go.
They were open to the possibility of voting for Kamala Harris, but when the decision was made not to sit down with Joe Rogan, that influenced their vote. So it wasn't necessarily
your dog's awesome. Hey, thanks, man.
But it was the idea that that Harris was not going to sit down, not going to show what they said was
see, they know
true
they're losing, so they go to pull out any trick in the book. Hey, man.
Thank you.
I think that's probably why Aspen's watching this, watching NBC. You know?
36 million in the U.S.
I want to see kind of like the more left side, because if the left side is I'm struggling, then
the polls have closed, so we can report out some of this exit poll data. Again, 600 polling places all across the country. It's early vote, it's mail-in vote, it's in-person day of, but it is early, right? So these numbers could shift a bit. But what we're seeing in Georgia on the Latino vote is interesting. It is Kamala Harris who is winning the Latino vote, 56%, to Donald Trump at 42%. But interestingly, if you look at the comparisons, former President Trump is doing slightly better with Latinos in Georgia than he did in 2020. He is slightly overperforming with that demographic group. And Jose, you know, and Savannah and Lester and Kristen, this is something the Trump campaign talks a lot about. They think that Donald Trump is going to do better than he did in 2020 with these demographic groups, including Black and Latino voters.
Oh my God!
Damn, he's up.
Into this conversation, because you know, this effort to
try to win over more Latino voters
on behalf
of the Trump
dude,
that's
campaign,
crazy.
It's never been about can we win the Latino vote. It's can we cut into her margins enough to make a difference, and are we beginning to see perhaps that strategy pay off?
So, and I think the course set for the future of America tonight will have been chartered by Latino America. And we're not talking just about places like Nevada and Arizona, where 25% of the population, the eligible population to vote is Latino. But we're talking about Georgia, for example, 400,000 eligible voters are Latinos. We're talking about Pennsylvania, more than 500,000 eligible voters are Latino. And then, you know, Tom was just talking about Florida, 3.3 million Latinos are eligible to vote there. I think that it's a situation where it's the Latino population, but 36 million strong, is participating maybe in historic numbers tonight in the American democratic experiment, our American democratic
and what's
experiment.
Driving that?
I think what's driving that is that there is no Latino vote. There are Latino voters, each with their own individual American dream, with vicissitudes and barriers.
Imagine that people think for themselves.
The best future for their children and for themselves. And so I think that what we're going to see in Pennsylvania tonight will have a direct impact on what Latinos
refresh the map.
come out to say tonight. And in Arizona and Nevada, yes, but also in Georgia and in North Carolina.
Yeah, it's early on, but we're starting to see this flesh out a little bit. Jose, stand by with us. We're moments away now from another round of poll closing. Some big states at stake, including that former battleground, Ohio, and one of the newest battlegrounds, North Carolina.
We are moments away from the polls closing in 3 more states, including battleground North Carolina.
President Trump has won this.
Dude, he's almost up 3%. Holy shit, just like within the last, like, 10 minutes.
North Carolina, we will win.
Kamala Harris is making a serious run for its 16 electoral
What's the TLDR of the election right now?
North Carolina.
People think Trump's going to win.
Down to this.
Plus 2 major wild cards. Hurricane Helene decimating the western part of the state. And the Trump-supported candidate for governor.
Now to the scandal that's rocked the governor's race in North Carolina and could have national implications.
A possible drag on the Republican ticket.
We are standing by for the first vote count and new exit poll information for the Tar Heel state as our decision desk gets ready to make new calls on the road.
We're going to get on to Google again. Let me see what the Google says.
So that sets us up for
It's still at
nicely,
19.
Sam Brock. Hard hit Asheville, North Carolina. This was the part of Western Carolina that were really hurt by Hurricane Helene. And you're in Asheville now. What are you seeing there?
Sure, Savannah. So where we are right now in Buncombe County, which is the home of Asheville, certainly this is one of the most directly impacted areas by the storm. They're starting to pack up now. Just about an hour or two earlier, there was large applause here because they reached 1,000 people voting in person here at this precinct. And what's so interesting about this particular location,
wow, dude, that's really
it
close.
wasn't intended to be the voting site. In fact, the church that was supposed to be had helicopters delivering supplies, which is why they had to shift it. It's one of about 17 different locations in this county, Savannah, that had to shake things up. And as I talked to residents today, they basically told me they had a lot of confidence that the communication was good. They were able to find their location. And in Buncombe County alone, you had 116,000 people early voting and then 25,000 more today. These were record numbers in terms of just the overall presence. And the western part of the state, Savannah, and this is really what I want to drive home, outperformed the rest of North Carolina when it comes to early voting. That was at 56.7%.
So Mrs. Trump is doing his acceptance speech?
Then there were 11 different counties that exceeded 60% before people even came on Election Day. And I say all of this as you see cases of water over my shoulder, right? People are still doling out supplies. And just to give you a snapshot of what's going on the ground right now, people don't have potable water. You're staying at hotels where families are still displaced and they are just wondering, when are they going to get their loans for their businesses? When will their employees be able to have stability? These are all the things that are weighing on folks' mind as they're still voting. Now, we talked about North Carolina as a wild card, as it projects strength in terms of some of the turnout here in the rural communities. You also have a scenario where women, 52% versus 41% for men. There was a big gap so far in early voting of women who are voting, and the conversations I'm having, many of them tell me that they do think abortion is front and center for them. We'll see how that plays out here.
It's a huge mistake for them to
Sam Brock in Asheville, North Carolina, part of the region that has just been through so much, and yet so many people came out
Trump
to
had
exercise
locked
their
that
right to
down,
vote. I want to go over to Tom Yamas because this is the battleground in 2020 that Donald Trump actually won, and he wants to try to hold on to it.
Savannah was the only one that he won in 2020, but it was his closest margin of victory. Let's take a look at North Carolina right now, and I'll take you back to elections past. So as we just mentioned, Trump wins here, but barely, right?
VA.
He won in 2016. He had a higher
VA
margin
for
there.
Kamala Harris.
Romney. I want to go all the way back to Obama's first race. Obama won North Carolina, right? But since then, Republicans have been able to flip the state, but their margins have come down just slightly. I spoke with Governor Roy Cooper, the governor of North Carolina, who told me this is going to be their year. So how do they turn the vote out, and how do they flip North Carolina from red to blue? The 3 places they have to do it. The first one is Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. This is a majority minority
I'm almost at
county,
62% on Polymarket.
Voters, you have about 16% in Mecklenburg
so there's
County.
not a lot of white people
30% black voters there.
What Polymarket is?
Out those voters. The second place,
So it's like where you can go bet on
which is known as the Research Triangle. The capital, Raleigh. You have schools like NC State in Raleigh. Just next door in Durham, you have Duke.
Like with cryptocurrency and shit.
That in Orange County, you have UNC Chapel Hill. And finally, the Triad. A lot of people, if you don't know North Carolina very well, this is sort of a forgotten metro area. You have places like Greensboro and High Point, Winston-Salem.
It's probably
along
above
with those
South Carolina,
black
right?
Universities. These are the areas, guys, where they have to run up the vote. How does Trump win? Well, look at the state. You see how red it is.
It is?
And here's the
Okay.
issue. It's one of the most rural battleground states. So Trump has to run up that rural vote.
clues.
And then you were just talking to Sam Brock about the
He's
issue
smart.
of hurricanes. Those are the hurricane counties right there. A lot
Trump's
of them
62?
are Trump country, with the exception of Asheville, Buncombe, where you have Appalachian State over here, where Boone is. Those are Trump countries. Hopefully those people are going to go out and vote for him. That's what they need. Back to you guys over there.
All right, Tom, then the Democrats have put on quite the ground game there in North Carolina to try and flip that state in their direction, which would make their path considerably easier.
Let's see what this is. We're going to look at the Google. It's looking like, oh shit, New Hampshire. 2% as well. That's new for Kamala Harris. Georgia is 16 votes. Ooh, Virginia, bro, that's like 1%.
Huh? Yeah, I did.
Refresh. Oh, bro. Oh, bro. Oh, shit. Oh, no. Oh, God. Virginia flipped again? Uh-oh. Bro. Kamala should have gone on that podcast, man. Oh, that was so stupid. Why did she not just go on the podcast? Oh, man. What a fucking mistake. This is bad. Probably would have been worse for her if she did. I don't know. You think she would have lost by even more? Landslide? I mean, like, we're looking at like 3%. Like, I mean, obviously, we like goofing around, right? We all like goofing around. We're looking at 3% of a report on a handful of states that are not always instrumental in deciding the election. Oh, VA flipped again. This is going to be tight. This is going to be real tight. Ooh. Jill has 25,000 votes now. Jill Stein with 25,000 votes. Wow. Damn. She can still win. She's still got a chance, yep. VA's red again? Yeah, it's going to be back and forth. If Trump loses, it's rigged. I've been hearing that a lot. Yep. Yeah, that's what Trump said. Yeah. Arrests already
remastering
good.
Warcraft 2.
Bro, people start. If anybody is doing any kind of civil unrest because they're mad that people
Boys,
didn't
they're
vote for who they
remastering
wanted,
Warcraft
put them in
2.
fucking
How cool is
jail.
that?
Get the fuck out of here. I want to see that shit.
Good morning begins with hope and optimism. A chance to start fresh.
Hope and
We want to
optimism.
welcome you in to share a moment that brightens your day.
NC is
because every
closing
day
now?
deserves the best start.
Uh-oh. We're going to get back to it. Election alert.
And welcome back to our NBC News election coverage. At 7:30 in the East, we've got some new results to show you. West Virginia, Donald Trump is the projected winner in West
Country
Virginia
roads.
for electoral votes. Here's where it puts us on the road to 270. Donald Trump out in front with 23-3 for Kamala Harris.
Polls just closed in a handful of states. Here are ones that we cannot call yet: Ohio and the battleground of North Carolina, which we've been talking about. Here's our projection.
Hey, thanks for the like, guys.
Too early to call. Just not
good.
ready.
Great projection,
to really
guys.
Say information about that yet. Georgia is also too early to call. Polls closed about a half hour
Wait,
there now.
58% Donald.
Projection. This has to do with the United States Senate.
58% Donald
is Jim Justice, as expected. He will go to the Senate. This is a pickup for Republicans. This was
Boys, we're almost at 260 subscribers on YouTube. How freaking cool is that?
The Democrats, well, now the Republicans have picked up.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching.
As I turn to the table here, and Kristen, just so people
his name just Jim Justice? Of course he won.
In the Senate.
That's not even fair.
The Republicans are looking to flip that tonight. They need a net pickup of 2.
You can't name yourself that.
They just got one, so it is significant. We are looking at, and this was expected.
So who's the guy on the bottom of the screen? Of the other guy that's talking on, is that your friend of yours? So I'm actually the one streaming, so the one waving at you right now. I'm the one streaming this stream. And then Asmongold is a very popular World of Warcraft streamer that I really enjoy watching, and so I like reacting to stuff with him. So that's what I'm doing. It's kind of like hanging out with your buddies.
What scenarios do you think could possibly?
And you guys can kind of my own little podcast.
17 states had different people vote for president versus Senate. That was down to one state last year, the state of Maine, when Susan Collins won, but the state went for Joe Biden. So we'll have to watch that very closely. But again, we were expecting that result out of West Virginia.
Ticket splitting has become more rare in the Trump era. However, it's making a comeback.
Yeah, people. That's a good point. People are too fat.
Might vote for a different party for president.
We can't have civil wars anymore. Because everybody's too fat now.
And how are you doing some more exit duty?
Yeah, dude. We'd have to like.
That's right. So now that North Carolina
have to go on some walks and shit.
Some of what we're seeing from these exit polls numbers, and it is interesting here, right? First, we're going to take a look at the non-white vote in North Carolina. These are the black voters and Latino voters that Tom was talking about in some of those key counties in North Carolina. As expected, Vice President Harris is winning non-white voters based on these early exit poll numbers. But take a look at Donald Trump here. He's got that 25% slice of the pie. Let me show you the comparison. He's leveling up, outperforming where he was 4 years ago with non-white voters in North Carolina. He was at 19% in 2020. However, 2 things are also true here. Let me show you white voters here, and we can take a look at the comparison here. You can see that it is former President Trump winning with white voters at 61%. Kamala Harris at 39%. But again, take a look at the comparisons to 2020. She is actually outperforming where President Biden was back in 2020. She is doing better with white voters in North Carolina. So you might look at that and you might go, as we take a walk back to the desk here, you might go, okay, well, those 2 things, do they balance out? Not really, because white voters make up a larger share of the electorate in North Carolina than non-white voters. So she might be willing to make that trade, essentially.
All right, Hallie, thanks. I want to go back over to Tom. Tom, you've got some more information in Florida, but before you get into that, just to be clear, there's 2 poll closing times in the state of Florida.
Yeah, it's what we call a split poll closing. So on the eastern portion of the state, we have data coming in because the polls have closed there. We can tell you about the data. And some of the further parts of the panhandle, they haven't closed just yet. So we won't be giving you that data just yet. We'll probably wait another 30 minutes. I want to show you something that's somewhat surprising. It may surprise you if you watch presidential elections and you follow election nights like this one. So Donald Trump right now with 73% of the vote in is up 55% in Miami-Dade County. Again, this is where Democrats find their votes in the state of Florida. Biden won Miami-Dade County by 53. They've now flipped those numbers. 73. This is pretty astonishing when you think where Hillary Clinton was in 2016. 63%, 53. Now tonight, 55. Again,
dang, dude.
73% of the vote left.
That's crazy.
Ron DeSantis won Miami-Dade 2 years ago by about 11 points, which was a surprise at the time. But this shows how Republicans are expanding the map and how Florida is becoming more and more red. I do want to show you some potential good news, possibly for the Harris campaign.
What is
if
it?
They're watching tonight.
What is it?
So we're watching some of the vote come in Georgia. Remember, I told you more than 50% of the vote from Georgia is going to come around the Atlanta metro region.
Big surprise.
Let's take a look at some of these counties around Atlanta. 74% in Douglas County.
Farming.
Look at the number. 65%. Biden was at 61.
Damn, dude. She has a huge lead there. Huge lead in
let's look at another county.
Georgia.
Right now we have Gwinnett. We don't have any.
That's Georgia, right?
Just yet in. Rockdale County is another big one. She's at 75%. Biden was at 69. So she's overperforming right now in some of these counties in the Atlanta metro region. Again, guys, this is where she has to drive up her vote. If she can expand the map, scale the Democratic vote there, they can hold Georgia. You remember, this was such a close race
gonna win, bro.
4 years ago. Any votes they can find in that Atlanta region is going to help them. Guys?
All right, Tom, thank you so much.
It's
We've
over.
got guests over at our insiders desk today. And we also want to ask them what they're thinking of some of these early returns. We're starting to see some themes come out. We've got Cornell Belcher. We've got Mark Lauder. Cornell, I'll ask you what you think about what Tom just talked about. You had the story in Miami-Dade where it's potentially a big victory in that county, signs perhaps that outreach to the Hispanic vote is working for Donald Trump. And yet in Georgia, you're starting to see some of that
Adam, what do you do, dude?
really being ramped up for Kamala Harris.
No, I think that's right. Look, Florida is. I think Democrats are going to look back at how we've not invested in Florida since the campaign I worked on, the Obama campaign. We've not invested and worked Florida well. And Florida's like a country. It's really big, expensive state. I think we've taken those resources and we've moved them more to battleground states like Georgia and North Carolina, and where you see a sort of a difference. But Florida, it's a state that Democrats did not invest a lot of money in, did not run a lot of advertising in.
Yeah, and do shit.
And it shows.
Let me bring in Mark Lauder, Director of Strategic Communications in the Trump 2020 re-election campaign, former spokesperson for Vice President Pence. Mark, give us your view as we wait for a call in North Carolina. What is the Harris camp right now thinking?
Right now, they're looking at turnout. I think, and really for both sides, it's going to be all about turnout. Do you get your voters out? I've seen some, I've heard anecdotally from some of my colleagues on the campaign that turnout is not where it needs to be.
68% North Carolina
for Kamala Harris.
Ooh.
It's overperforming in some of the rural areas, including the hurricane impacted areas. So I think it's a good sign for President Trump. We're going to have to see how that plays out. Another thing I'm watching, and I know Tom alluded to it with Miami-Dade.
Trump is fucked.
I also looked at Hillsborough County, Tampa Bay in Florida. It was both Hillary and Biden, both a +7. Right
That's
now,
the rig. It's getting rigged.
That's the rig, dude.
And Hillary Clinton actually did some campaigning there for this particular election as well. Mark and Cornell, thank you. We'll be back early and often as we go along here.
And we will take a break here. I think we're going to come back with more on the make or break state of Pennsylvania as the polls get
2% Trump, it's over. Yep, that's right. 2% in. Let me see where we're at. I'll do a refresh just in case.
Ooh, golly.
Florida's got 30 votes, though. That's a lot. That's an ass load of votes. And, it's, pretty definitively Trump. Because it's 73%. You can pretty much assume it's going to be like that the whole time. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Dude, this is crazy to watch.
I'm looking at the rest of these too. Georgia, Trump is in Georgia. What the fuck? 60% in Georgia. Oh my God.
Are you warming up the oven?
He's up by over 100,000 votes. Check Polymarket. I'm gonna look at it right now. Polymarket, where's it at? 61.5? God. Uh-oh. Trump tweet? Oh, he tweeted?
Man, let's see what Trump tweeted.
Oh, shit. What did he say? I'm trying to find. Give me a minute. Yeah, he did. Where's it at? Give me a minute.
Hi, Republicans. We're doing really well. If you're in line, stay in line. Don't let them take you off that line. Vote. Stay in the line. They can't do anything about it. And vote. We're going to win it big. Thank you.
We're going to win it big. All right. Let's see where we're at on the next one here. Yeah. 23-3. It's not looking good for Kamala Harris. Uh-oh. It could be over. Guys, this might be it. Trump is already back up to 65% on Polymarket. Who'd you vote for? I didn't vote. I thought that they were both clowns, so I didn't want to vote for him. Straight up. That's really what it is. Yeah, I didn't vote. I'll tell you this, it'd probably be better for me if Trump wins, because I have to pay less taxes.
Oh, there you go.
You really staying up all night for this? No, I'm staying up all night jerking off. Yeah, I might pay attention to the election too, but it's not really why. Yeah, no, I mean, but I'd be awake, yeah, for sure. I was too lazy to vote. Yeah.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
To win? Like on a personal level, it would definitely be better for me if Trump wins. Like, absolutely, it'd be better. However, what would be better for like the country? I really can't say. That's why I didn't want to vote. Yeah. Here we go. Let's get to it. Trump, we're going to find out.
We're back with our election night coverage, and with Tom Yamas at the big board talking about the road to 270, waiting for North Carolina right now. The polls closed there. But how important is that to either candidate in terms of making their path to 270 easier or tougher?
Yeah, let's start with former President Trump, because he really needs to hold North
Trump
Carolina.
Is 65% on Polymarket?
He won in 2020.
No way.
So let's give him North Carolina. If he holds North Carolina, he flips Georgia and Pennsylvania, he gets to 270. That's his easiest path. But Lester, if he can't win North Carolina, his whole map changes. And why do I say that? Because he can no longer win just 3 states. He has to win 4. He can do it by winning Pennsylvania and Georgia and keeping the blue wall, or I should say tearing down the blue wall, Michigan and Wisconsin. If he can't go there, he has to go
tear down the wall. No, he's supposed to build the wall.
In Arizona, that puts him over the top. But again, without North Carolina, for his scenario, he needs 4 states.
Harris has put a lot of money and time and people on the ground in North Carolina. What does it do for her?
Well, look, if she wins these 16 electoral votes, it eases some pressure off her, right? Because her easiest path is the blue wall. If she can win Pennsylvania and North Carolina, look how close she is. She only needs 9 more
Mexico
electoral
builds
votes.
the wall,
Pretty much
idiot.
any other state with the exception
we build the
of
wall.
Nevada
Mexico
gets
pays
her there
for it.
if she's able to win there. So if she can take North Carolina, the Trump team gets much more nervous and the Democrats become much more optimistic because she's won out east. If she can win in the Midwest and pick off a state out west or hold it, she's going to be the president.
All right, Tom, let's go back to Savannah.
Haley, look at this.
Wisconsin is a big part of it, and our
already at 66%
in Milwaukee with some
That's so
breaking news, and it's a possible issue with absentee ballot counting. Hey, Shaq, what do you know?
Uh-oh.
Hi there, Savannah. I want to first start with what we're seeing at these polling locations, because locations are open for about another hour. I want to let you go inside. I can't go inside and report, so I'll let our camera go inside there now, where we've seen a steady flow of people at this location. There was a line that went on for more than an hour this morning. You see things have slowed down a bit. The reports from around the state is that the vote process is going smoothly, but where we are seeing hiccups is with the vote counting. We just learned from the clerk in Milwaukee downtown, where they are counting all of the absentee ballots and early votes at once, that the city of Milwaukee had to restart the processing or counting of those absentee ballots. They say an observer saw that while the ballot tabulators were sealed, the door wasn't properly closed on them. And after going through with the bipartisan team and making sure that nothing was tampered with, the city, out of an abundance of caution, decided to restart counting all of those absentee ballots. What this means is that as we expect results from this battleground state of Wisconsin, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. The clerk said in the past that they weren't expecting results from this city to come until after midnight Central Time. We now believe that timeline has shifted 2 to 3 hours later into the night. There's more than 100,000 ballots that those clerks are going to have to work through. So the vote is still ongoing right now, but be prepared to wait as those results come in later tonight, guys.
All right, Shaq Brewster in Milwaukee. We're used to waiting for Milwaukee until the wee hours of the night. I want to go back to the table here. Hallie, you've been looking at some of the exit polls. I think you've got some North Carolina information and some interesting results.
So there's some conventional wisdom here, and then there's some data that flips the conventional wisdom on its head. So let's talk about that, specifically as it relates to these age groups. We know, right, the Biden coalition in 2020 that propelled him to the White House involved young voters, right? And for our purposes, young is 18 to 29. In North Carolina, and I want to show you here, you can see that for older voters, and I'm talking senior
hear that?
here, former President Trump won those older voters. That is not unexpected. His campaign has long thought that he would do well with seniors. But here's what's interesting. Look at Vice President Harris. She's got 47% of the senior vote. She's doing better than President Biden did with seniors in 2020 in North Carolina. So she is
because the seniors knew he was fucking cooked.
Then you look at that youth vote, right? Again,
68%.
Not unexpected that Vice President Harris would have a
up
slight lead. And I would say
2%.
this is very close.
Jesus.
We are waiting for more numbers to come in, more of these waves as they're called from the exit polls, but still interesting. But again, look at 48% for former President Trump. He is outperforming among young voters in North Carolina. So you have that kind of conventional wisdom. They're overall sort of winning the groups, at least to a degree that we thought they'd win. But each of them are overperforming on the sort of flip end of that.
All right, well, Savannah Sellers is here to talk about a huge role that the youth vote could play in the outcome of this election. What have you been seeing? You've been
Still
tracking
23 to 3
leading up to tonight.
Yeah, I absolutely have. And first, I want to dig in a little further on North Carolina and what Hallie just said, because if we dig even deeper in and we talk about gender in that under 30, it's similar to the trends that we've been discussing. Trump has improved what he did with young men tonight. 60% in our NBC News exit poll there say they support him. That is up from 42% that voted for him in 2020. Whereas with Harris, she's performing even better than Biden did with women. 65% saying that they support Harris in this exit poll. 58% actually supported
Is that just North
Biden.
Carolina, or is that a national
That's just
poll?
North Carolina. That's our North Carolina exit polling tonight. North
Well,
Carolina
I'm
glad
two people with two different political views can have a good conversation and talk nice with each other.
But the college
My
Democrats
bad for the
were
mistake.
so organized in this state.
Oh,
Like,
I
what
don't
they
think you
did
made
on
a
these
mistake.
campuses was really amazing. They lobbied the state.
I want
to have
Jasmine all the
polling places
time.
on campuses. They even had it be made that the student ID could be an acceptable form of ID on several campuses, which was not the case prior. We're also seeing this kind of play out to be right what we're seeing with that young men appeal for Trump seems to be working in some places.
Yeah,
I'm interested to
He
see
was
if
on
that
Joe
continues
Rogan.
throughout the night. We heard Gotti mention like those podcast appearances earlier in the night.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, Logan Paul, things like that.
Logan
This
Paul,
seems
that's
to be
right.
where he is gaining that ground. I'm interested to see if it continues in other battlegrounds.
And just underscoring how important the young vote is, the Harris campaign tonight touting the fact that they have Paul Rudd, for example, out trying to energize college voters
Nobody
in
gives a fuck
Pennsylvania.
about celebrities,
Jennifer
bro.
Garner as well.
Keep
It
them in
matters,
line.
but not really.
Stay in line. This,
Mark Cuban is FaceTiming
Exactly.
voters in a 4-hour line at UNC
Exactly.
Chapel
And
Hill
it
right now.
speaks to how close this race continues to be as these results come in. On the other hand, you have the Trump campaign saying, hey, we're seeing good turnout in Philadelphia. Yes, in the Trump areas. We'll have to see how that actually bears out when we start to get results in Philadelphia. But it does speak to the fact that there's a real focus on this epicenter and on young voters.
And when we talk about young men in particular, and to the point that you're making here at the table, that the Trump campaign has really looked to turn those young men out, they're not typically the people who show up to the ballot box every 4 years. They're what's called those low propensity voters we've been talking about. I will tell you that the Trump campaign feels like they've been doing a pretty good job trying to turn those not always voters into voters every cycle, because for them, that's one of the big keys. If they can get this demographic out to the ballot box to actually show up, whether that was early or whether that's now, they're feeling like they're going to have some wind at their back.
It's, you know, you take a step back, the story of this election is the gender gap. It's the battle of the sexes election, and whether you want to say it's young men or senior women, or it's men and women. If Trump turns out more men, he wins. If Kamala Harris turns out more women, she does. It's kind of as simple as that.
No doubt about it. And what's so fascinating is that the Trump campaign tried this sort of unusual, unconventional tactic to get out the vote, which was to outsource it to Elon Musk, to other outside groups. And they were quite bullish heading into tonight, saying, look, we feel good about this decision.
And remember, the Harris campaign was concerned about black men as well.
That's
I mean, they brought in President Obama to make the case. Any evidence right now how that appeal has translated into votes tonight?
Well, that's one of the things that she has talked about on the campaign trail. I sat down with the vice president not too long ago, and she feels like she needed to earn every single one of those black male votes just as much as Joe Biden would have. That's why you saw her. We talked about podcasts, doing like an NBA podcast, a football podcast. Sure, she did call her daddy to try to reach out to those young women. That's the name of course, that very popular podcast with women. But she also was trying to extend an olive branch to men. I would just say this. Two things are true, right? Kamala Harris, let me say it this way. Donald Trump is doing better with men based on public polling right now than Kamala Harris is doing with women, though that gap exists. But also remember that historically, women have turned out more than men in every election dating back to 1980. And so that is going to be one of the big key factors into tonight.
And that's why that moment with former President Obama was so significant when he called on them not to stay at home.
All right. Well, we're just a few minutes away now
I don't know
from
if that
a
really
big
moved the
batch
needle.
of poll closings at 8 o'clock
There's
Eastern
nothing
time,
yet.
including the one that everybody's been watching, Pennsylvania. And we'll be right back.
Uh-oh. Oh, shit. Yeah, you're right. Damn, it's already been an hour. I didn't even fucking realize this shit. God damn. Damn. Let me go and look at this. Where are we at on this?
I have to get up early in the morning. I still
Six.
won't.
Oh, bro, it went down.
You got Miami, huh?
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Ooh.
Go over it.
Not good. Bro, he's going to lose. It's over. I've never voted until today, and I voted for Donald Trump. Man.
I have one bite.
This is the same as 2020. It was going very well for Trump, and then they rigged it. I think that it's going to be different this time because like if I remember the way it was last time, the reason why it took so long is because of COVID. It was like COVID and mail-in ballots.
Yeah, that's exactly
That's
why.
not a factor this time, so it's a totally different system. But I guess we're going to have to find out. That's cope. You think so? The burn ballots? I saw they blew up that one ballot. Yeah, exactly. Watch out for 150K votes in 3 a.m. Look up Google Trends for did Joe Biden drop out? Let me see. I'll pull this up. It's not giving me any information. Yeah. Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, look at this one.
It says no info.
Look at
Yeah, it
this.
doesn't say
And
yet.
then look at this. So presidency.
You gotta watch the video Elon Musk just posted on Twitter.
That's crazy.
This is just some shit about like dark MAGA. There's nothing else really crazy about that. Yeah. Dark Gothic MAGA. Yeah, exactly. Let's see where this is. 66.3. Ooh, he's going up again. Oh, Trump's gonna win, guys. Where are we at here? Yeah, none of the other ones have been called yet.
What?
Georgia, bro, 20% reporting in. Trump ahead by 200,000 votes.
Amy Phil.
Uh-oh. That's a whole lot. Trends Google. Let me see. I see this.
No. I didn't know. Hold good.
Everybody thought I was crazy. Everybody thought I was stupid.
News lives in the now.
Why? Because people are stupid. You have no idea how stupid people are.
For the generation of now is NBC News Now.
They're so stupid. There are people that never think about politics until they open up the ballot box and they see, oh, who is it this time?
On the 8 o'clock hour here in the East, you are looking at vote counting centers across
let's
the country
see.
in this historic election.
Some polls have closed. In some places, people are still voting.
They are indeed. And we're about 6 minutes to the next poll closing, where we'll get our first look at the real vote count from the biggest battleground of all, Pennsylvania, which we've been talking about, states that have been moving quickly.
We are moments away from the
25K cockroaches. Yeah, you guys can join the Twitter community.
And the District of Columbia.
Join the Discord.
171 electoral votes up for grabs in the biggest haul of the night.
The haul.
Florida, with its 30 electoral votes, could be one of the
Let's
first
see it.
big calls of the evening.
And we'll get our first results from what may be the most important prize this election, Pennsylvania.
We love Pennsylvania.
It is good to be back in Pennsylvania.
The race could all come down to the Keystone State.
Pennsylvania is extremely crucial.
If Vice President Harris loses this state,
Pennsylvania, it all comes down to this.
her path to 270 narrows significantly.
We're going to win Pennsylvania.
So, Pennsylvania, are you ready to make your voices heard?
We're standing by for the first vote count and new exit poll information from this critical battleground as our decision desk gets ready to make
All right.
calls on the road to 270.
Let's see it.
All right,
It's getting called in 4 minutes.
In
Dude, this is gonna be crazy.
This is where the Harris campaign really needs to ramp up those turnout numbers. What are you seeing?
4 to
Yeah,
80%.
well, it's coming down here in Northeast
80%.
Philadelphia. This is kind of a work